Part 44. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 431. Nwao bent down and hugged Lulahua, whispering, "Mom, I will always stand by your side. Whether you and Dad are divorced or not, I will always be on the same side with you." Lulahua's eyes turned red, and he choked up and said, "Yao Yao, you still love your mother the most. You are my most beloved mother. If I don't love you, who will love you?" Nwao patted her back, and her eyes were full of calculations and ridicule in a place where Lulahua couldn't see. What Lulahua said was nonsense to her. When they sent her abroad, she knew that they cared most about themselves. And the only person she could rely on was herself. What is family affection? To her, those were things to be used. Nwao went to the water dispenser to get a glass of water. She put a white pill in the water in a secret way with her back to Lulahua. The pill produced a few bubbles in the water and soon melted into the water. Nwao shook the cup of water, walked to Lulahua with the water, and handed it to her. "Mom, drink a glass of water. You go to sleep first, you are not in a good mood, you need to rest. When you wake up, we will go to settle the score with the mistress." "Okay." Lulahua nodded, then took the water she handed over, drank it, and went upstairs with a dizzy head. After she went to the room, Nwao also returned to her bedroom. After half a year, she returned to this room again, and she felt as if she was in another world. In the past, she regarded the Yin family as her safe haven and invested all her feelings in it. But now, Nwao sneered twice. Opening the closet, she put her suitcase in. As soon as she put it away, her mobile phone rang. Nwao's expression changed, and she quickly took out her mobile phone and answered it as quickly as possible. "Mr. James." Her eyes were full of love and admiration, and she restrained her excitement in her tone, just making her voice sound more delicate and pleasant. Mr. James said coldly, "Nwao, I don't give you much time. If you can't let Nan Yan take the medicine within 3 days, you will have no use value. At that time, I will no longer care about your life or death." Nwao's face flashed a trace of panic, then she calmed down, gritted her teeth and said, "Mr. James, don't worry, I will definitely let her take the medicine as soon as possible. After completing the task, you can contact me." "Yes, Mr. James." Before Nwao finished speaking, there was a beep sound from the other side. Nwao was stunned for a moment, and then took out a small safe with a password from the suitcase. "Enter the password." The safe opened, and there was only a refrigerated medicine bottle inside. The light blue liquid looked like a dream in the white smoke, beautiful as if the sea of stars was included in the bottle. But Nwao looked at the bottle with extremely fear. After making sure the medicine was intact, she locked the safe again. Then she was a little worried. How was she going to get this bottle of medicine to Nan Yan? Today she tried to apologize to Nan Yan, but she didn't appreciate it at all and didn't change her attitude towards her at all. It seems that she can only use others to make her take the medicine. Among the Yin family, the only ones who Nan Yan can accept are Grandpa Yin and Anziran. I'm afraid no one else can do it. The old man is half dead now, and the only one who can do this is Anziran. Then, let Anziran become her puppet. #Airport. Nolan looked up at the sky. It was gloomy and about to rain. Gloomy weather can easily breed negative emotions in people, not to mention Nolan, who is originally a dark person by nature, and his thirst for blood and cruelty are growing wantonly in his heart. Wen Hong was frightened by the terrifying aura he was generating, and begged in his mind, "What on earth do you want to do? Can you go back to country M? Can you please not disturb their lives? I beg you." Nolan said gloomily and with a morbid smile, "No, I am very interested in the little junior sister now. Unless the little junior sister agrees to go back to country M with me, I will not leave." Otherwise, I can only stay here and look for an opportunity to take her away. Wen Hong said sternly, Nolan, you are not allowed to touch the little junior sister. If you dare to touch the little junior sister, I will do whatever it takes to die with you. Wen Hong was panicked. Nolan is a real lunatic and pervert. His interest in the little junior sister is definitely not a good thing. Do you have this ability? Nolan sneered, you are just a piece of trash imprisoned in my sea of consciousness. What else can you do except yelling at me in the sea of consciousness? Wen Hong, I advise you to be good and don't annoy me, so that I can completely erase you. When the time comes, I will completely occupy your body, and you will completely cease to exist. Wen Hong fell silent. He really couldn't do anything. He was a useless piece of trash. He couldn't even control his own body. An alien soul occupied his body and used his body to do all kinds of bad things. Why is this happening? Wen Hong was helpless, but he couldn't do anything about his current state. He had no way to make any changes. No matter how hard he tried, he could only be trapped in the sea of consciousness and couldn't access any control of his body. In addition to being so undignified and forced to watch him use his body to hurt the people he cared about, he could do nothing. Even though he tried his best, he couldn't make any impact on Nolan. Wen Hong was filled with sorrow and resentment, but he could only keep silent. He would rather live in such a humiliating way than disappear completely and let him become him completely. He wanted to monitor his every move. If one day, he had a chance to seize control of the body, he would tell everything to the junior sister. Nolan was quite satisfied with his silence. He licked his lips, slowly took out his mobile phone, and made a call. Yobai, where are you and master? I'm in Jinjinj, pick me up. Fu Yobai, second senior brother, you're here too. Nolan snorted, I was talking about that. You all came to Jinjinj, but you left me alone in the imperial capital. Isn't that too much? Fu Yobai was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, the situation was urgent at the time. Junior sister's grandfather was in danger of his life, so we rushed here, so we forgot to contact you. Oh, okay, pick me up at the airport first. Yeah. Fu Yobai hung up the phone and looked at Hua Shifang, master, second senior brother is here too, at the airport, I'm going to pick him up. Hua Shifang nodded, go. Old Master Lu quickly called the housekeeper and asked him to arrange a driver to take Fu Yobai to the airport to pick him up. Old Master Hua, Old Master Sun, why don't you all stay at Lu's house tonight? Yanyan will probably be on guard at the hospital and can't come back to help you arrange accommodation. Old Master Lu wanted Hua Shifang and the others to stay with him. In recent years, there are almost no people who are qualified to enter the Lu residence and be allowed to stay overnight. It is rare for him to have people who want to stay overnight, so he naturally does not want them to leave. Moreover, these are Yanyan's masters, so he naturally has to treat them well. Even if Hua Shifang's identity is not considered, he cannot slack off. Hua Shifang thought for a while and nodded, okay, then I'll trouble you, Mr. Lu. He also stayed because Mr. Lu was Nanyan's grandfather. Otherwise, he would rather stay in a hotel than stay in a stranger's house. Mr. Lu smiled and said, no trouble, no trouble. Sun Chan didn't care where to stay, anyway, senior brother said to stay, so he stayed. Hashtag Airport. Fu Yobai saw Nolan, who was outstanding in appearance and gloomy in temperament, in the crowd at a glance. He asked the driver to stop the car, and after getting off the car, he waved to him, second senior brother, this way. Nolan slightly raised the corners of his lips and walked towards him with long legs. How is junior sister's grandfather? Where is junior sister? I want to go see her first. With master and junior sister here, he was saved, but he is too weak and is still in the hospital. The driver heard their conversation and adjusted the navigation. After leaving the airport, he went directly to the first hospital. Anziran sent Fuyubai back to Lu's house, and bought food to bring back to the hospital when he came back. Grandpa couldn't eat anything, so he had to watch the three of them eat. Yan, Grandpa can't even drink porridge. Anziran felt that the old man was a little pitiful. When he bought food, he specially bought a bowl of thick millet porridge, just for him. Nanyan said lightly, "It's definitely not possible today. Let's wait and see how Grandpa's condition is tomorrow. If he gets better, he can eat some liquid food. The porridge can only be drunk after 3 or 4 days." Grandpa. Suddenly there was a feeling of hopelessness. What was going on? Tips: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter report error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. It's not good to be hungry for a day. He has to be hungry for so long. He already feels his stomach growling. Poor. What's more pitiful is that Yanyan hasn't calmed down yet and didn't comfort him. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas. Anziran silently brought the millet porridge in front of him. Forget it, Grandpa can't drink it, and it can't be wasted, so he drinks it. In addition to this bowl of millet porridge, he also bought seafood porridge and mushroom soup and gave them to Nanyan and Qin Lu. After dinner, Anziran picked up the remaining food and take-away boxes and took them out to throw away. Throwing away the garbage and preparing to go back, his mobile phone rang. A strange phone call. Anziran frowned and chose to answer it. "Fourth brother, Mom is not in a good condition, come and see her." Nwao's anxious voice came over, and Anziran's expression changed slightly. "What's going on?" Nwao said with tears in her eyes, "I don't know. Mom said she felt very uncomfortable after she came back, dizzy, and not in a good spirit. I let her go to rest, but she didn't wake up after lying down. I called her several times and shook her, but she didn't wake up, and her body temperature was very hot, as if she had a high fever." Although Anziran had a lot of opinions about Lulahua's bad treatment of Nanyan, she was his mother after all. Now she was probably seriously ill, so he naturally couldn't ignore it. He hung up Nwao's phone, said something to Nanyan, and drove to the N family. Nwao was waiting for him at the door. Seeing him coming, she hurriedly said, "Mom is in the bedroom upstairs, fourth brother, come up with me." Anziran didn't doubt him, and quickly followed Nwao upstairs. Lulahua was lying on the bed in the bedroom, and there was nothing unusual from the outside. He bent down and stretched out his hand to push on her. "Mom, wake up, Mom." Bang. An 11 was then hit on the head by Nwao with an ashtray. He tilted his body and fell on the bed without even making a sound. It also happened to hit Lulahua. And Lulahua showed no signs of waking up. Nwao threw the ashtray aside, then turned Anziran over and took out a potion from his pocket. "Open the potion, forcefully open Anziran's mouth, and let him drink all the potion." After doing all this, Nwao began to wait for Anziran to wake up. She hit Anziran carefully and carefully. It will make him faint without making him faint for too long. It was enough for her to pour her wants into him, and he would wake up in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, Anziran's eyelashes trembled slightly. Nwao raised her eyes and became a little excited. He's going to wake up soon. Next, she can test whether the medicine Mr. James gave her has such a miraculous effect. Anziran frowned hard, and then slowly opened his eyes. His eyes seemed to have lost focus, staring blankly ahead. Nwao quickly followed the steps taught to her by Mr. James, using drugs and passwords to turn him into a puppet who only listened to her orders. Half an hour later, Anziran knelt on one knee in front of Nwao, looking at her like a pilgrim, and respectfully shouted, "Master, Anziran obeys your orders." Nwao was stunned for a moment, and then laughed. It really worked. She turned Anziran into a puppet who only listened to her orders. Then, it will be much easier to feed the bottle of medicine to Nan Yan. Nwao took out the bottle of medicine that was like a sea of stars from the safe and handed it to him. Anziran, let that bitch Nan Yan drink this bottle of medicine. No matter what method you use, she must drink it. Yes, master. Anziran stretched out her hands, took the medicine Nwao gave her, and put it in her pocket. Nwao took out another earring with a camera and monitoring function from the box and handed it to him. Take off the earring on your ear and replace it with this one. Anziran did as he was told. He took off the black diamond earrings that he had worn for nearly 10 years since he had his ears pierced, and put on the earrings given by Nwao that also looked like black diamonds. When Nwao gave him the order to leave, he stood up from the ground, turned around and walked out. When he came outside, the blank and stiff expression on his face changed, pretending to be an expression no different from his usual one. Nwao stood at the window, watching Anziran walk out of An's house, get in the car, and leave directly. Then, he turned on his cell phone and started monitoring Anziran's every move. She was a little nervous. If Anziran failed to succeed and complete Mr. James's order, who would she find to complete it next? Will not. Nan Yan trusted Anziran so much that she would not doubt any food or drink he handed over. Mr. James said that as long as she took a sip of the medicine, it would be effective. It will definitely succeed. Hashtag. Fuyubai and Nolan came to Mr. N's ward. Nolan looked at Nan Yan, his morbid impulse hidden in his eyes. Second senior brother, why are you here too? Nan Yan did not show any feeling of alienation. But he couldn't be as familiar and intimate with Fuyubai. Nolan was not among those she trusted in her heart. Master and the others can come, and the third junior brother can come, but I can't come, Nolan said with a hint of resentment. Little junior sister, do you regard me as an outsider? I don't. Nan Yan answered seriously. Even if she did, she wouldn't say it. Really, Nolan looked like he didn't believe her. Nan Yan looked at him and said calmly, if you think it is true, then it is true. If you think it is false, then it is false. Really, of course it's true, Nolan retorted with a smile, as if he was afraid that Nan Yan would say that those things were all fake. How is your grandfather doing? It's okay, just take care of yourself. Mr. N is weak. He will fall asleep after being awake for a while, wake up again after a while, and then fall asleep again. He happens to be falling asleep now. Second senior brother, you and third senior brother go to find Master and the others together. The hospital is small and there is no place for you to stay here for the night. You're going to drive us away right now, Nolan pretended to be angry. Nan Yan explained, that's not what I meant, but there is nothing good to do in the hospital. Qin Lu received a message on the sofa. After seeing the content of the message, he put his phone away, stood up, and said, Yan Yan, I have something to do and I have to go out. Yeah. If you have something to do, go and do it. Nolan said directly, then when he comes back, we can leave again and stay here with you. Qin Lu walked quickly and walked out of the ward with his long legs in a few steps. The figure leaving in a hurry showed a bit of solemnity. Nan Yan licked her lips, thinking to herself that something must have happened. I don't know, what is it? Not long after Qin Lu left, Anziran came. He held a cup of milk tea in his hand. After entering, he ignored Fuyubai and Nolan and handed the milk tea directly to Nan Yan. Anziran said warmly, Yan Yan, let's have a cup of milk tea. I went to the milk tea shop to queue up and waited in line for a long time to buy it. Thank you. Fourth brother Nan Yan took it, inserted the straw, and took a sip. Nwao saw through the surveillance on Anziran's earrings that Nan Yan drank the milk tea with medicine, and then pounded the bed happily. She completed the task assigned to her by Mr. James in one day. With such efficiency, Mr. James will definitely praise her. Mr. James asked her to notify him after giving Nan Yan the bottle of medicine, and Nweo couldn't wait to contact him. And in the ward, Nan Yan took the milk tea in her mouth and spit it back in intact. Although there are various flavors, additives and sugar in the milk tea, the taste is very strong, but when she took the milk tea, she tasted that there is a taste that does not belong to milk tea. She didn't believe that the fourth brother would harm her. After holding the straw for a while, she looked up and asked, "Fourth brother, where did you buy this cup of milk tea?" "Anziran, the milk tea shop over on Baywa Street. I heard that the milk tea there tastes good." "Yan Yan, don't you like it?" Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 432. "No, I like it very much." Nan Yan calmly put the milk tea aside and stretched out her hand to him. "Fourth brother, give me your hand." "What's wrong?" Anziran was a little confused, but he still followed Nan Yan's instructions and extended his hand to him. Nan Yan held his wrist and took his pulse in a secret way. "Yan Yan, what's the problem?" Nweo didn't know how advanced Nan Yan's medical skills were, and when James gave her those medicines, he said that these were medicines that would not be detected. Nan Yan pressed on his wrist for 30 seconds before letting go of his hand, and then said lightly, "It's nothing, I just want to get close to you." Fuyubai, Nolan. This excuse is quite perfunctory. However, the two of them still don't know what Nan Yan's intention is. "Fourth brother, haven't you returned to Anne's home? How is her condition?" Anziran's brain is now in a state of chaos. According to Nweo's order, he does not let himself appear to be under control. After hearing her question, he replied, "It's nothing, it's just that the stimulation I received was too great and it was a bit hard to accept for a while. I need to slowly adjust my mood." Nan Yan asked thoughtfully, "Is Nweo accompanying her now?" Anziran nodded and said, "Well, Yao Yao is very filial and caring." "I understand." Nan Yan didn't ask anything else, and said calmly, "Fourth brother, please go back first." "Grandpa, I will take care of you here." Anziran shook his head and advised, "I'll stay here. You're already very tired today. Go back and have a good rest." "No, I'll be here to guard you today, and you can replace me tomorrow." Seeing Nan Yan's firm attitude, Anziran stopped insisting. It happened that Nweo still needed him to reply, so he simply agreed. Nweo stared at Nan Yan with a gloomy and twisted expression through the camera on Anziran's earrings, and the corners of her mouth raised crazily. It won't be long before Nan Yan will become her prisoner, crawling at her feet and begging for her life. But soon Nweo couldn't help but wonder, why did Mr. James go to so much trouble to arrange for her to come over and let her give Nan Yan that bottle of medicine? If Nan Yan had offended him, he should have asked her to kill her. But just now, she called Mr. James, but Mr. James only said to wait for him to come over and asked her to hand Nan Yan to him, but he did not say what to do with her. Nweo couldn't help but think wildly, and a thought that made her jealous emerged uncontrollably. She felt that it must be Nan Yan's charming face that seduced Mr. James. She must not let that bitch Nan Yan take away Mr. James. Therefore, she must find an opportunity to ruin Nan Yan's face before Mr. James rushes over. Nweo clenched her fists viciously, her eyes flashing with madness. Hashtag. After Anziran left the ward, Nan Yan picked up the cup of milk tea and prepared to go to the laboratory to check to see if there was anything fishy in the milk tea. "Little junior sister, you seem to be suspicious of your fourth brother. Have you discovered something?" Fuyubai has been observing Nan Yan, and from her attitude towards Anziran, it is easy to find that something is wrong. Nan Yan shook the milk tea in his hand and said, "There are some things that I want to confirm. Third senior brother, I remember that your tracking skills are very good, please do me a favor." What's the deal? Go and help me follow the fourth brother. I need to know the people he came into contact with after leaving the hospital and the conversations between them. Good. Not 2 minutes after Anziran left, Fu Yubai followed Nan Yan after he agreed. Nolan bit his little finger and asked with a smile, "Little junior sister, is there anything you need my help with?" Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. "No, please help me take a look at Grandpa." "Okay then." Nolan watched Nan Yan leave the ward, then withdrew his gaze and walked slowly to Mr. N's bedside. "Tell me, if I inject this old man with some genetic medicine and then threaten my junior sister to follow me back to country M, will she be obedient?" In his mind, Nolan asked Wen Hung in a slightly excited and impulsive tone. Wen Hung didn't want to pay attention to him. He was just talking to himself, asking and answering questions, and what he said would not affect his decision at all. However, Wen Hung was silent for less than a second before he couldn't help but say, "If you want junior sister to slice you up, just do it. Junior sister just looks nice and soft, but if you touch her bottom line, you will definitely end up miserable." Wen Hung knew that Nolan was a madman. If he really wanted to take action against Mr. N, there was no way he could stop him. The junior sister cares so much about this old man. If something happens to him, the junior sister will definitely be very sad. The junior sister lost her parents when she was young and became an orphan. She also considered a thief as her father and was hurt by the person she trusted wholeheartedly. Now that she has been reborn, Mr. Yuan has made up for the gap in her family relationship. In her heart, she probably regards him as a real family member. No matter what method he uses, he must stop this pervert from attacking the old man. "Slice it, it sounds pretty good." Nolan murmured gloomily, "If she hates me so much, maybe, I don't need to force her anymore. As long as I return to country M and reveal my identity, she will come to the door on your own initiative, so I don't have to worry about finding a solution." Wen Hung said quickly, "Junior sister hates you to the core right now. Even if you don't do anything to the old man, if you go back to country M and announce your location, she will still look for you. You hurt someone she cares about, and junior sister is the most protective of others. There has been a blood feud between you and her for a long time. It's not me, it's you." Nolan reminded him with a sick smile, in her eyes, "I am you. Her second senior brother hurt the friend she cares about. You bastard." Wen Hung gritted his teeth angrily, "Who the hell are you? How long do you want to stay in my body?" He really couldn't figure out why he would run into his body. Obviously, he was normal before and had never shown any signs of dual personality, but after waking up that day, there was an extra soul in his body. In the beginning, he could still control his body and have ownership of it. At the beginning, he didn't know that Nolan would become such a being in the future, using his body to do all kinds of bad things. At that time, Nolan was in very poor condition and spent most of the day sleeping. But later, as he spent more and more time awake, and his condition got better and better, he began to compete with him for control of his body. He was completely defeated. His resistance and struggle didn't last long before he was completely suppressed by him and shrank into the corner of his mind. "Wen Hung, I can't return this body to you unless..." Nolan said half of what he said and didn't continue the rest. Wen Hung heard the implication behind his words. It's just that he can find a body that suits him better. Wen Hung didn't know whether he should hope that he would find another suitable body as soon as possible, or whether he should hope that the two of them would lock themselves up and prevent him from harming others again. "I don't want to expose my identity now, so let this old man let it go." Nolan murmured and returned to the sofa leisurely to sit down. Wen Hung breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Nolan did not attack Mr. N. Otherwise, given Mr. N's current physical condition, he might not be able to withstand his genetic medicine and his life would be in danger. Hashtag. Qin Lu was filled with a murderous aura, like a god of death walking out of hell, with extremely cold eyes. Next to him was Tang Cheng, who was seriously injured and could barely stand. Tang Cheng is Shen Junking's confidant and the second in command in the organization. Now Shen Junking is sleeping in the laboratory of country M. People in the organization who have always been dissatisfied with him take this opportunity to seize power. Tang Cheng was attacked from both sides and ambushed, and his life was almost lost here. Originally, the disputes within the organization had nothing to do with Qin Lu, and he should not have intervened. But Shen Junking is very important to Nanyan. It was because of Nanyan that he fell into the unconscious situation. Before he woke up, he had to guard this position for him. Mr. Qin, this is our internal matter. As an outsider, even if you are the king of heaven, you can't control our execution of traitors, right? Qi Guanyu forced himself to look at Qin Lu. But if you look closely, you can see that his legs are shaking slightly. Tang Cheng was so angry at his shameless words that he spat out another mouthful of blood, and then gritted his teeth and yelled angrily, "Qi Guanyu, don't make such a high-sounding statement that you want to take advantage of the lone wolf's absence to seize power and usurp the throne. If it weren't for Third Young Master, where would the organization be today?" But they didn't know how to be grateful, and they only wanted to take advantage of the Third Master's absence to seize control. What a bunch of rubbish, ambitious bastards. Cough cough cough. Tang Cheng finished cursing in one breath and started coughing up blood again. Qin Lu patted him on the back, "Go and wait. Mr. Qin, how could you possibly want to go against so many of us by yourself?" Qi Guanyu gritted his teeth and reminded Qin Lu of this fact. He came to Jinqing alone, and because something unexpected happened, Wu Yu didn't even follow him. "How many people do we need to clean up, you bunch of trash?" Qin Lu pushed Tang Cheng behind him, took a step forward, and directed an overwhelming terrifying aura towards Qi Guanyu and the others. Before they could say anything else, Qin Lu took action directly. As agile as a cheetah, Qi Guanyu and the others were already approaching before they could react. No one even saw how he moved, and then severe pain spread from all parts of his body. They were all dead and lay flat together. Tang Cheng. If this wasn't what he saw with his own eyes, he would have thought it was a movie special effect. "Mr. Qin, this is too strong." After Qin Lu defeated them, he said indifferently, "I will keep your lives, and I will deal with you when the lone wolf comes back. Can I still leave?" Tang Cheng, yes. In fact, he felt that he couldn't. But looking at the man in front of him who looked like a god and demon, he didn't dare to say he couldn't. He didn't have the guts to let Qin Lu support him. So, he dragged his half-disabled body to the car with difficulty. "When I got in the car, I was instantly paralyzed and couldn't even move a finger. If the car had been farther away, he probably wouldn't be able to get on it even if he vomited blood. Fortunately, his physical strength is still enough to support him till this point." Qin Lu drove and took him directly to the hospital. "Without treatment, he will probably die." Halfway through, Tang Cheng regained some strength and said gratefully to Qin Lu, "Mr. Qin, thank you very much this time." Yet Qin Lu replied indifferently. Tang Cheng was silent for a while, and couldn't help asking, "Mr. Qin, how long will it take for the Third Young Master to recover?" He couldn't contact Shen Junking, and he didn't know his situation at all. This confused state made him feel insecure. He was eager to know about Shen Junking. "It will take some time." Qin Lu's hand holding the steering wheel slightly exerted force. He saw Shen Junking and Bai Chen lying on the experimental table, and also learned from Nan Yan what they both had endured. And they suffered this disaster because of Nan Yan. "Don't worry, before he gets better, I will keep his position for him and won't let anyone take it away." This is what he did for Nan Yan and Shen Junking. Tang Cheng moved his lips and whispered thank you. After that, the two people in the car didn't speak again until they arrived at the first hospital. Tang Cheng had no strength at all, and there was absolutely no way he could walk into the emergency room by himself. Qin Lu called the medical staff and brought him a stretcher. After Tang Chen was sent to the emergency room, Qin Lu returned to the ward to find Nan Yan. As a result, there was only one Nyolan in the ward, and no one else was there. "Where is Yan Yan?" Nyolan leaned his head lazily and raised his chin to him. "In the laboratory." Qin Lu turned and was about to walk out. "Qin Lu, are you sincere to Yan Yan?" Nyolan suddenly asked behind him. Qin Lu stopped and said lightly, "I don't need to tell outsiders about my feelings for her, as long as she understands. But, my master and uncle don't seem to agree." "Are you sure you can move their hearts?" Nyolan laughed, and the question he asked became more and more sharp. "If they don't agree all the time, do you want your little sister to be caught between you and be in a dilemma? How to make the two masters accept it is my business. I won't make it difficult for Yan Yan." Qin Lu answered his two questions calmly because Nyolan was Lan Yan's second senior brother. After that, he left the ward directly. Nolan looked at his back with a strange smile on his face. It seems that Qin Lu has deep feelings for Nan Yan. As long as he can control Nan Yan, Qin Lu will be threatened by him and obey him. "Wen Heng, your little sister is becoming more and more attractive to me." He couldn't wait to bring her to his new nest. "Wen Heng, pervert." Apart from these two words, he didn't know what else to say. Nolan smiled evilly, "Thank you for the compliment. Wen Heng." #Laboratory. The cup of milk tea that Nan Yan personally checked. When the test results came out, her expression gradually became gloomy. "Genetic medicine. Genetic medicine again. Is this the work of the pervert of the 7 deadly sins again? He wants to do something to her." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 433. After reading the inspection report, Nan Yan transferred it directly to her account, and then handed the milk tea to the inspector. "Extract the drugs inside." "Okay, Miss Nan." The inspectors in the laboratory had long been reminded of Nan Yan's identity by Tao Qingming and treated her with great respect. When Nan Yan came out of the laboratory, he saw a tall man standing outside. "Elder brother." The gloom in Nan Yan's eyes dissipated, a slight smile appeared on the corners of her lips, and she walked quickly towards him. Qin Lu put his big hand on the top of her head and rubbed it, and asked with gentle eyes, "What happened?" Nan Yan blinked, looked up at Qin Lu's face that could confuse people, sighed and said, "Someone wants to use my fourth brother's hand to harm me." "Your fourth brother?" Qin Lu's eyes darkened slightly. He was deceived. He was not there before and had no idea what happened in the ward. But he also knew that with Fu Yubai and Nolan here, and Nan Yan's own abilities, she would not suffer a loss. "No, it's more serious than being deceived. My fourth brother is not a brainless person and will not be easily deceived." Nan Yan's expression darkened. He must be under someone's control. "I may have to go there later, brother, please accompany me." Yet Qin Lu curled his lips slightly. Nan Yan knew to ask him to accompany her, which made him very happy. This is slowly learning to let him share some of your own affairs. He actually hopes that Nan Yan can rely more on him, but he needs to know that with Nan Yan's character, he is destined not to rely on him for everything. She will solve everything she can solve by herself, always forgetting that she can rely on him. As for Tang Cheng, who was still in the emergency room, Qin Lu never thought of taking care of him again. This is a hospital with doctors and nurses here, so no one else needs to worry about his safety. Mr. An is temporarily taken care of by Nolan. So Nan Yan and Qin Lu didn't go back and drove directly to Anjia. #. Fu Yubai followed Anziran all the way to An's house, and then eavesdropped on his conversation with Nweo. After Nan Yan and Qin Lu arrived, he quietly came to them. "Yan Yan, you are right, your fourth brother is indeed being controlled." Fu Yuebai's tone was a little serious. This was the first time he had seen this situation. Not through hypnotic control. If it is hypnotic control, there are traces to follow and it can be seen. But Anziran's state was obviously not that of being hypnotized. Nan Yan nodded. "Well, third senior brother, have you recorded the conversation between them?" "Have." Fu Yuebai took out his mobile phone and clicked on the video he secretly recorded. And in order to record the sound, Fu Yuebai had the foresight to secretly put his Bluetooth headset in Anziran's pocket before Anziran left. So there is sound in the video he recorded. Nanyang clicked to play. The video starts after Anziran enters An's house. After Anziran came out of the hospital, she went directly back to An's home. Nweo was waiting for him in the living room. As soon as she entered the door, Anziran walked up to her respectfully, knelt down on one knee, and called "Master." Nweo looked at the devout expression on his face, raised her lips and laughed. "Anziran, when you ignored me because of that bitch Nan Yan, did you ever think of today?" Nweo gritted her teeth, raised her hand and slapped Anziran on the face. Anziran remained motionless, his face was hit to the side, but he immediately came over and apologized humbly. "Master, I was wrong. Master can punish me as much as he wants. It is an honor for me to be beaten by Master. You asked for this yourself." A cruel smile appeared on Nweo's face, and she opened her bow with both hands, hitting Anziran's face until it was swollen. It wasn't until her palms were red and painful that she waved her hand away, with the pleasure of revenge in her eyes. Anziran's face was swollen, but he still knelt upright in front of Nweo without flinching at all. The expression on his face was even apologetic. "It's all my fault that my skin is too thick. Master's hand hurts from beating it. I deserve to die." "You do deserve to die, but you don't have to die now. Tomorrow you can find a way to bring that bitch Nan Yan out to me. If you can do this well, I will spare your life and let you follow me from now on. By my side." Anziran's face was swollen and his speech was a little slurred, but he still said respectfully, "Master, don't worry, I will definitely complete your mission." Nweo gave him a disgusted look and said coldly, "Okay, now go and apply a cold compress on your face yourself. When you go to find that bitch Nan Yan tomorrow, don't let her see anything unusual about you." "Yes, Master." Anziran got up and went upstairs by himself. However, Fu Yuebai still stayed where he was, and the video was recorded by Nweo. Nweo's next actions were a little nervous, like a madman, laughing from time to time and saying insulting words about Nan Yan. Fu Yuebai suppressed his anger at that time and did not take action. He was just afraid of ruining Nan Yan's affairs. Although he didn't know much about the situation between Nan Yan and the Yan family, he didn't know Nweo, and he didn't know much about the other people in the Yan family. But he could think that if a person who had been expelled from the country suddenly returned at this time, it was very likely that there was someone behind her. He couldn't act out of anger. The cold aura on Nan Yan's body was almost solid. The way she looked at Nweo was as if she were looking at a dead person. Such humiliation and trampling on the people she cared about made her even more angry than humiliating her. Nan Yan calmed down her anger, returned the phone to Fu Yuebai, and said in a low voice, "Let's go back first. She can't see Nweo now." She was afraid that she would lose control of her anger and kill her now. If he kills her now, what the fourth brother has endured will be completely meaningless. She planned to use her tricks to find out who was behind Nweo. Who is it that wants to attack her? If that person is the master of the 7 deadly sins, she can just lure him here and capture him. Hashtag. The first hospital. Tang Chen was pushed out of the emergency room and happened to meet Nan Yan and the others who were returning. Nan Yan glanced at him with her peripheral vision and felt that he was a bit familiar. She looked at him carefully and was a little surprised. That person seems to be third brother's subordinate. Why is he here? He was so seriously injured. Nan Yan whispered and walked towards Tang Cheng. I brought him back. Qin Lu followed her. There are a few restless guys under Shen Junking who want to seize power while he is away. Tang Cheng is his confidant and second in command. Became their primary target. I saved him and destroyed those others. If Shen Junking is not here, I will help him keep his position. Yan Yan, you don't have to worry about those things. Don't bear everything on yourself, okay? Nan Yan turned around and stared at him silently for a few seconds before saying softly, brother, it's great to have you. Qin Lu kneaded her little hand and said warmly, you know I'm here, so don't let yourself bear everything next time. Give me some room to express myself and prove that I'm not bad at all, eh? Nan Yan smiled, okay. Who dares to say that Mr. Qin is bad? Obviously, he is so strong that even she wants to look up to him. Since Tang Cheng was also going to be hospitalized, Nan Yan simply arranged him in the ward next to Mr. N. The next day, Mr. N woke up early and his condition was much better. He looked at Nan Yan distressedly and said weakly, Yan Yan, you have been here all day and night, go back and rest. Nan Yan slowly fed him some warm water and said calmly, Grandpa, I slept for a few hours at night and didn't need to rest. Mr. N turned his head angrily and refused to drink the water she fed him. He said to Qin Lu, Alu, take Yan Yan back. She will listen to you. Qin Lu said quietly, old man, did you misunderstand something? Generally speaking, I am the one who listens to Yan Yan. When we get along, she is in charge of me, not me in charge of her. Mr. N. Nan Yan. Does she care about him? Why didn't she, the client, know? Is it really okay to slander her character like this in front of her grandfather? After Qin Lu hit a wall, Mr. N turned his head again and looked at Nan Yan pretending to be angry. Yan Yan, do you listen to Grandpa? Nan Yan fed him another sip of water and coaxed, I'll go back later if someone comes to replace me. What are everyone else doing? The old man was a little angry. He was sick in the hospital, but no one came to see him. Only his granddaughter stayed here alone. Do they still regard him as their father? Nan Yan said calmly, I didn't let them cause trouble here before, I asked them to go back first. Oh. Mr. N's temper suddenly weakened. He knew that Nan Yan didn't like the N family, and everyone except the fourth child was acceptable to her. She didn't want to see them, so she did the right thing by driving them away and not letting them be an eyesore here. Obediently taking another sip of water, the old man said again, Yan Yan, where is your fourth brother? Why didn't he come? It'll be here soon. When he comes, you should go back and rest quickly, do you understand? Well, please speak less. You're so weak. It's hard for you to speak, and it's hard for me to listen. I'll talk about what you want to say after you feel better. Mr. N looked at her eagerly. My precious granddaughter thinks he is annoying, what should I do? Nan Yan pretended not to notice that the old man was showing pity, and after feeding him a dozen or so drinks, he put down the water glass. Not long after, N's Hisai, and Mulan and Insiding arrived. Insiding didn't have time to go to the police station until the evening last night and bail N's Hisai and Mulan out of there. When they arrived at the hospital, the three of them went to N Yeoking's ward instead of visiting Mr. N first. After entering the door, N's Hisai had a cold face and said straight to the point, Dad, how do you want to solve it? How do you want to settle that woman and that girl? Let me declare first that I will not admit that that girl is my sister. Don't even think about bringing her into the N family. We won't admit it, and Grandpa will never admit it. And Yeoking didn't sleep much all night. He was in a bad state and his eyes were red. He said gloomily, give them a sum of money and send their mother and daughter abroad. I didn't expect that Tao Sisi would dare to do this. I never thought about divorcing your mother. Tao Sisi is just a plaything. How can she be compared with your mother? Lele's existence is an accident. I never thought about leaving seeds outside. I have all four of you. A son, there is no shortage of children at all. That was all Tao Sisi's plan. When he and she had sex, they would take contraceptive measures. Who knew that he was drunk that day, and she deliberately seduced him? Under the influence of alcohol, he forgot to take precautions, and that night, Lele was born. She didn't tell him that she was pregnant, and even when she was about to show her pregnancy, she deliberately made an excuse that she would go home for a few months, deliberately hid out of town to give birth to the child, and came to him with Lele after the confinement. He looked at the child in the cradle at that time without any joy, only boredom. But later, as they got along, he also had feelings for Lele. Lele was his daughter after all, blood was thicker than water, and she was so well behaved and sensible, so he would inevitably go to Tao Sisi more often for her. He didn't know Tao Sisi had such courage before, dared to take the initiative to appear in front of Lulahua, and made a big deal of it, pushing him into public opinion, and being looked down upon and scolded by countless people. Now he even wanted to kill Tao Sisi, and as a result, that daughter was also disgusted by him, and he didn't want to see them again. ACI, the shareholders of the board of directors came to me yesterday. The company's stock price plummeted because of me. My image is now destroyed. I am not suitable to be the president of ANS anymore. They will probably choose you to take the position. You should shift your focus to ANS in the future. ANS Hisai frowned, hesitated for a moment, and nodded, okay. And Mulin and Inciting had no objection to ANS Hisai managing the company. Among the four brothers, ANS Hisai's business acumen is indeed better than the other three. In addition, Anziran's mind is not on the company at all. He wants to bring his team to the international arena and concentrate on developing his esports company. And Yeoking finally felt a little comforted when he saw that Mulin and Inciting did not seem to want to compete with ANS Hisai. Fortunately, he still has the final say in this family. Go find a wheelchair and push me to see the old man. Dad, you'd better not go to see Grandpa. And Mulin said coldly, I'm worried that seeing you will make Grandpa faint again. And Mulin, and Yeoking roared, how can you talk to me like that? He is his father. Just tell the truth, can't you let people talk about the bastard things you did? And Mulin's tone was a bit rebellious, Dad, I advise you, if it is for Grandpa's health, you should not disturb him to recover from his injuries. Besides, Yanyan is with Grandpa, and you will make yourself uncomfortable if you go. After saying that, and Mulin turned around and walked out without waiting for An Yeoking to scold him. And Yeoking's angry scolding came from behind. And Mulin was too lazy to pay attention. He walked towards Grandpa An's ward. Dad, Mulin is right. Si Ting and I will go to see Grandpa's condition and come back to tell you. And Yeoking. Even if he was angry, he knew that what they said was right. For the time being, he should not go to see the old man until his health gets better. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 434. On the way to Mr. An's ward, An Mulin met Anziran, who came to take Nanyan to the An family according to An Weio's order. When the two brothers met, An Mulin looked at his swollen face and said in surprise, Ziran, what's wrong with your face? It's okay, it's just that my face is swollen due to allergies. And Ziran touched her face nonchalantly and said calmly, it'll be fine in 2 days. It's not a big deal. Oh, it's fine. And Mulin looked at his face suspiciously, feeling that his face didn't look like an allergy. But since Anziran said so, he couldn't keep asking this question. Let's go and see Grandpa together. Anziran's expression was no different from usual, and he followed An Mulin into Mr. N's ward. Nan Yan's eyes fell on Anziran. Seeing his still swollen cheeks, a coldness flashed across his eyes. Anziran said hello to Mr. N first, and then looked at Nan Yan. Yan Yan, you've been here guarding Grandpa all day and night, so go home and rest. Nan Yan suppressed her temper, raised her eyebrows, and said with a smile, okay, I'll stay here. Grandpa will probably be angry, so I'll go back and rest. Well, it just so happens that the second brother is here. Yan Yan, let the second brother accompany Grandpa first, and I will take you back. Good. In order to allow Anziran to take her away reasonably, Nan Yan deliberately asked Qin Lu to leave the hospital temporarily. Grandpa, you are taking good care of yourself in the hospital. I will come over to see you in the afternoon. Mr. N smiled weakly and said, go ahead Mr. N hoped that she would go to rest early. I have nothing to do here, so you don't have to come over in a hurry. Just come back tomorrow. Yan Yan, let's go, I'll take you back. Nan Yan nodded and walked past An Mulin. An Mulin wanted to call her, but seeing her indifferent and distant expression, he had to smile bitterly and did not dare to stop her. Anziran followed Nan Yan out and ignored An Mulin when he was by his side. An Mulin. Mr. N looked at the way the three of them got along with each other and called out, Mulin, come sit here. An Mulin looked away and walked to Mr. N's hospital bed. Grandpa, how do you feel? Mr. N sighed, what else can I do? Just take care of it slowly. Then take good care of your health and forget about other things. I want to take care of it now, but I don't have the energy to take care of it. Whether it's your parents' affairs or the company's affairs, you should handle it yourself. I have to listen to Yan Yan and take good care of my body. I can't let her do it again. Angry. Mr. N has now figured it out. Children and grandchildren will have their own blessings. As a man who has half a foot in the coffin, why should he worry about it? Now, he just wants to live a few more years and protect his precious granddaughter. An Mulin stood aside and said nothing, but the expression on his face was a little lonely. The younger sister turned a blind eye to his advances. Even though he had changed and wanted to treat her well, she didn't give him any chance. Mr. N looked at his expression and said thoughtfully, Mulin, do you regret now that you didn't treat Yan Yan well before? And Mulin was stunned for a moment before replying in a low voice, but it's too late to regret it. Yan Yan has a clear distinction between love and hate. If others treat her well, she will treat them twice as well. On the contrary, if others treat her badly, she will not let herself be wronged. Since you already know that you have done wrong before, then correct it. I believe that with sincerity, gold and stone can be opened, and Yan Yan is not an unfeeling person. Mr. N's words made An Mulin's eyes light up. Yes, Grandpa is right, Yan Yan is not such a cruel person. She didn't accept him, it must be because his performance was not good enough. He should treat Yan Yan better in the future. It happened that he had bought a necklace made by a famous artist at an auction a few days ago, and he happened to give it to her while she was in Jinjinj. When Mr. N saw An Mulin change his previous decadence and loneliness, his expression became excited, knowing that he already had an idea on how to get Nan Yan's forgiveness. He hoped that An Mulin could truly realize his previous mistakes, and that Nan Yan could forgive him for the sake of his sincere reform. After all, they were blood-related brothers and sisters. He hoped that if he was gone in the future, there would be more people to take care of Yan Yan, protect her, and be her solid backing. Even if Nan Yan doesn't need them. Hashtag. Nan Yan and Anziran came out of the ward and met Ans Hisai and Ans Siding, who came to visit the old man after coming out of An Yeoking's ward. Ans Hisai wanted to say hello to Nan Yan, but Nan Yan walked past him without looking away as if she hadn't seen him. Ans Hisai couldn't hold back his face with embarrassment. He wanted to lose his temper, but Nan Yan had already walked past him, completely treating him as a stranger. Ensiding looked at Hisai, then at Anziran, who was passing by them without saying a word, and said softly, "Brother, let's go." Hisai looked at Nanyan's retreating back with gloomy eyes. If he had known earlier that Nanyan was the apprentice of the miracle doctor Hua Shifang, maybe he would not have treated her with the same attitude as before. But it's not too late to know now. She has the Yin family's blood on her body, so she has to pay for the Yin family. It's useless even if she doesn't admit it now. Let's go and see Grandpa first. Hisai suppressed his thoughts and didn't want to confront Grandpa Yin right now. The old man couldn't stand any stimulation now, and he would definitely disagree if he heard him say that he wanted Nanyan to make some sacrifices for the benefit of the Yin family. When he gets better, he and Nanyan will repair their brother-sister relationship, and it won't be too late to bring up this matter then. Nanyan sat in the passenger seat, looking at the scenery outside the window, and asked lightly, "Fourth brother, where are you taking me?" Anziran looked straight ahead, holding the steering wheel with both hands. "Go home." "Fourth brother, have you forgotten that my home is not here?" Anziran was silent for a moment before saying, "Accompany me back to get something first, and after I get the things, I will take you to Grandpa's place." "Oh." Nanyan responded lightly. It seems that the fourth brother's behavior is only controlled by Nweo, but he has his own consciousness and his IQ is still online. Can Nweo's method control the fourth brother for a lifetime, or is it just a short-term control? Nanyan feels that this kind of control will not be effective forever. It is necessary to use a method on him again every once in a while to keep him under control. However, she will not give Nweo a second chance to attack Anziran. The car stopped outside the Yin family villa. After Anziran got out of the car, he looked at Nanyan and said, "Yan Yan, come in with me. I need your help to get something." "Okay." Nanyan agreed straightforwardly. She wanted to see what Nweo wanted to do. She had extracted the drug that Anziran added to the cup of milk tea. It was a neurotoxin. The toxin would damage her nerve center within 7 days until she became an emotionless cold-blooded animal. The other party's goal should also be to control her. But it was different from the way to control Anziran. She would become a cold-blooded robot who could not feel pain and would never be able to recover. The damage caused by the drug was irreversible. Fortunately, when she drank milk tea yesterday, she noticed a faint taste in it, otherwise she would really go home and get it without knowing it. But don't worry, she should meet the person who wants to deal with her behind the scenes soon. Anziran walked in front and took Nanyan to the study on the second floor. And Nweo was standing in the study at this time. The boss chair turned around, and only a faint smell of cigarettes could be smelled, slowly spreading from behind the boss chair. When Nweo saw Nanyan coming in, her eyes were full of hatred. She didn't expect that Mr. James would come so anxiously. He came directly to Jinchinj before she even saw Nanyan. Nweo was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Mr. Enmus actually cared so much about Nanyan, why on earth? Nanyan looked around and asked in a deep voice, "Fourth brother, what's going on?" Anziran walked straight to Nweo, knelt on one knee, and said respectfully, "Master, I have brought Nanyan here." "Well done." Nweo patted Anziran on the head like a pet, and looked at Nanyan with vicious eyes. "Nanyan, how does it feel to be betrayed by the person you trust the most? Are you going crazy when you see Anziran, who cares about you the most, become my licking dog?" She used the things that Nanyan cared about the most to attack her. She wanted to see Nanyan in pain, and wanted to see her kneel in front of her and beg for mercy. Nanyan looked at Nweo with cold eyes and almost full of hostility, and said angrily, "What did you do to my fourth brother? He is my dog now. I told him to go east, but he dared not go west. Even if I told him to kill you, he would not disobey my order." Nweo's tone became more and more vicious, "And I told him to commit suicide and self-mutilate, and he dared not disobey in any way. Nan Yan, it's all because of you that he became like this. Do you feel guilty? If you kneel down for me, I can consider letting him live with dignity. How about it? Nan Yan sneered, and suddenly appeared in front of Nweo like a ghost, and strangled her neck with her slender hands. As long as I kill you, then the fourth brother will no longer be controlled by you. The cold eyes without any emotion, the cold tone as if from the underworld, Nweo was directly scared. She never thought that Nan Yan was so bold and dared to attack her here. Enziran, strangle yourself to death. Enziran heard Nweo's order and without hesitation, pinched his neck with both hands, and used so much force that his knuckles turned white. Nan Yan, if you don't let me go, your fourth brother will strangle himself to death. Do you want to watch him die? Nweo was gambling. She was gambling that Nan Yan would never watch Enziran die in front of her. Nan Yan really couldn't watch Enziran commit suicide. But Nweo thought that she could threaten her like this. She was wrong. She pinched Nweo's neck with one hand and slashed Enziran's neck with the other hand. With a thump, Enziran fell directly to the ground, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Now, he won't obey your orders anymore, and you can't hurt him. Nan Yan's cold tone, accompanied by the fingers that pinched Nweo's neck, suddenly tightened. The strong feeling of suffocation finally frightened Nweo. Her face was full of fear, and she uttered a hoarse voice with difficulty, "Mr. James, save me." James, who had been watching the show, turned his boss chair around, and his black eyes looked up and down at Nan Yan with a look like looking at goods. The look that made people feel physically disgusted was like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue, cold and sticky, making people sick. But Nan Yan also saw his appearance clearly. "Mr. James, save me." Because the man turned around, Nan Yan's force on Nweo's neck was a little lighter, making Nweo's cry for help louder. "Are you the person behind Nweo?" Nan Yan stared at James' face. "What's your purpose in deceiving me to come here? This is a Chinese. Black hair, black eyes, yellow skin, a straight Asian." Nan Yan was very sure that she had never seen him, and she had never had any contact with him in her previous life or this life. "Let her go first." James' tone was high and commanding. He only used Nweo, but although Nweo was a little stupid, she was devoted to him and was a very useful chess piece. "You can let her go, and remove the control over Enziran, 1 for 1, that's fair." "Okay." James put a bottle of medicine on the desk. "This is the antidote, you give it to him, and he will return to normal after he wakes up." Nan Yan didn't believe his nonsense at all. She didn't plan to give that bottle of medicine to Enziran. Nan Yan picked up the bottle of medicine and let go of Nweo. Nweo coughed and ran behind the desk, where Nan Yan couldn't reach, to seek James' protection. Nan Yan leaned over to help Enziran up, helped him to the sofa, and then looked up at him, expressionless. "Now tell me, why did you go to so much trouble to trick me to come here? I want to ask Miss Nan for a favor." James has a handsome face. Although he is already over 30 years old, he has a more mature man's charm. At this time, he smiled, as if inviting Nan Yan. "If you can do me this favor, I will reward you handsomely in the future." "What favor?" "I can't tell you for now. Come back to country M with me. When the time comes, I will tell you what I need your help for." James wanted to stabilize Nan Yan first. He didn't expect that Nan Yan would be harder to subdue than she thought. Now the drug has not fully taken effect, he is going to delay time. After 3 days, Nan Yan will completely obey him. At that time, it will be easy for him to use her to control Qin Lu. Perhaps, it would be good to let Qin Lu die in the hands of the woman he loves most. He will not let any of the Qin family's lineage go. Nan Yan's eyebrows revealed a hint of evil, and she raised her eyebrows arrogantly. "What if I say no? If you don't drink the toast, then you can only drink the penalty wine." James snorted coldly, and then shouted, "Come out, all of you. 1 minute. 2 minutes. None of his men came out. James's face suddenly darkened, and he stared at Nan Yan fiercely. "You didn't come alone." Nan Yan turned around and looked towards the door. The door of the office was kicked open from the outside, and a tall figure walked in slowly. Qin Lu. James' eyes were like poison. He was actually tricked. On the surface, he asked Nwao to set up a trap to trick Nan Yan in. In fact, it was Qin Lu and Nan Yan who teamed up to trick him. Qin Lu came to Nan Yan and made sure she was safe before turning to James and said solemnly, "James, one of the 7 great envoys of the temple, is in charge of finance and trade, and relies on various unspeakable means to accumulate wealth for the temple. Notorious, how many people hate you and want to grind you to ashes. However, you have another identity, the traitor of the Qin family, Qin's Hixiu." Qin Lu's words made James, that is, Qin's Hixiu, look embarrassed suddenly. "Don't call me that name." Qin's Hixiu stared at Qin Lu viciously. "I'm not a member of the Qin family anymore, I'm James, the holy envoy of the temple." When he rebelled against the Qin family, he completely broke with the Qin family. For so many years, he didn't consider himself a member of the Qin family. He relied on his own strength to step by step to his current status. Now, what he has to do is to make the Qin family his own. In the future, he will be the head of the Qin family, so that those who once looked down on him can only look up to him and live by his face in the future. Originally, he wanted to seize the Qin family a long time ago. The Qin family has been thriving in recent years, and its international influence has been increasing, so powerful that he was surprised. However, Qin Lu was too strong and too powerful, so he never found a chance to take action. Later, he knew that Qin Lu fell in love with a girl and had risked his life for her many times, which gave him an opportunity. Nan Yan was Qin Lu's Achilles heel and his weakness. As long as he could control Nan Yan, Qin Lu would only surrender obediently. But he didn't expect that the first time he attacked Nan Yan, he would attract Qin Lu's attention. A traitor of the Qin family, colluding with Caesar to kill me. Qin Lu's voice was cold, with invisible murderous intent, wantonly released. "Since you are here, you don't have to leave. It's just right, I want to clean up the Qin family." Qin's Hixiu sneered, "Qin Lu, do you want to make an enemy of the temple? I am the holy envoy of the temple. If something happens to me here, do you think the temple can let you go? What's more, you don't care about her life or death." Qin's Hixiu stretched out his hand to guide the cigarette. "If you dare to touch me, I guarantee that your woman will definitely die in front of me." He is not stupid. After waiting for such a long time, no one of his appears, and Qin Lu appears here again. It is obvious that his people have been eliminated by Qin Lu. I don't know how many people from Qin Lu are still guarding outside, and he has fallen into his trap now. In order to escape from Qin Lu, he had no choice but to use Nan Yan's trump card now. Qin's Hixiu was afraid that Qin Lu would not believe that he had this ability, so he continued. "Just last night, Nwao controlled Nziren and poisoned her. Only I have the antidote for this poison, and the time to cure the poison is only 3 days. Within 3 days, she will not take the antidote. Will definitely die. Is this the bottle of medicine you're talking about?" Nan Yan took out the bottle of liquid medicine separated from the milk tea from his pocket. It was still a blue liquid, glowing like sapphire under the refraction of light. Qin's Hixiu's pupils suddenly shrank and he said in shock, "Why do you have this bottle of medicine?" He turned his head and stared at Nwao sinisterly, and asked sternly, "Nwao, what's going on?" Nwao also looked confused. "Mr. James, I watched Nziren pour this bottle of medicine into the milk tea, gave it to her, and watched her drink it. The bottle in her hand is definitely fake. She deliberately lied to us." and Weiao didn't believe that Nan Yan didn't fall into the trap. She must have deliberately found a potion of the same color to use as a disguise, so that they can take it lightly. Yes, that's right. She must have guessed this. Nan Yan sneered and did not explain how she got the bottle of medicine. After turning the medicine in her hand and putting it back in her pocket, she said to Qin Lu, "Brother, stop talking nonsense with them. I want to check up on brother 4. I don't want to waste time here." Qin Lu nodded, "Well, you take Anziran away first, and I'll handle it here." Nan Yan, "Okay." She took out the silver needle she carried with her and inserted it into several acupuncture points on Anziran's head, and then pinched it on the other person's head. Anziran suddenly woke up, and his confused consciousness allowed him to identify, and then he recognized that the person in front of him was Nan Yan. "Yan Yan, I'm sorry, I don't know how I could be controlled by an Weiao, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Anziran's face was full of panic, and she grabbed Nan Yan's hand, feeling guilty and self-blame. He was too stupid to be plotted by an Weiao. Thinking that he had followed an Weiao's advice and listened to her to harm Nan Yan, he almost killed himself. "Fourth brother, I'm fine. I knew something was wrong with you from the beginning, so I wasn't hurt in any way. Don't worry, I'm fine." Nan Yan calmed him down, took out a pill bottle from her clothes, poured a pill into his mouth. "Fourth brother, let's go back to the hospital first." Anziran's brain was still in chaos, because he had not yet escaped an Weiao's control, and the two consciousnesses were constantly pulling and entangled, causing severe pain in his head. But he didn't want Nan Yan to worry, so he nodded despite the severe pain and stood up with Nan Yan's help. Before leaving, Nan Yan left a message, "Leave an Weiao to me." An Weiao looked at Mr. James, who was like a god in her eyes, but was suppressed like this in front of Qin Lu. She couldn't accept this change at all. After hearing Nan Yan's words, she finally knew what she was afraid of. She cannot fall into Nan Yan's hands. Otherwise she will definitely die. What an Weiao didn't expect was that Nan Yan would not kill her. But she would make her life worse than death, the kind that would make her die even if she wanted to. "Mr. James, what should we do?" And Weiao put all her hopes on Qin's Hixiu. "Where are your people? Let them rescue us quickly." "Shut up." Qin's Hixiu shouted darkly, "Your life and death have nothing to do with me. Qin Lu, I can give her to you and you let me go. Otherwise I'll kill her now." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 435. Qin's Hixiu remembered that when Nan Yan left, he told Qin Lu that he would leave an Weiao to her. If he kills her, Qin Lu will have no way to deal with Nan Yan. An Weiao's eyes widened in disbelief. What did she hear? Mr. James actually threatened Qin Lu with her life so that he could get out of here. Is this a joke? An Weiao had always regarded Mr. James as a god, but she saw with her own eyes that the god fell to the mortal world and was crushed into dust. Isn't Qin Lu just the leader of the Qin family? No matter how powerful it is just a family from China. But Mr. James is the holy messenger of the temple. Why is he so afraid of Qin Lu? An Weiao's spirit was about to collapse. Faced with James' shamelessness, Qin Lu just said indifferently, "If you kill her, you can do it without Yan Yan. Her blood was so dirty, I didn't want her to touch it." Qin's Hixiu's eyes were evil. "Are you sure you want to enmity with the temple? He must not fall into Qin Lu's hands. If the Holy Master knew that he had failed to take over the Qin family's property and had killed so many people because of his selfish desires, then the Holy Master would never go to great lengths to save him from Qin Lu. Even though he is one of the 7 holy envoys, he does not have so many privileges. Because there are many candidates for quasi-sacred messengers in the temple. If he fails, the Holy Lord can depose him at any time and choose someone else to seamlessly fill his position. It doesn't matter if you provoke me and make enemies with the temple. Qin Lu's face was stunning, but his expression was so calm and callous. He stretched out his hand directly and launched an attack on Qin's Hixiu. Qin's Hixiu was horrified. He didn't expect that Qin Lu was not afraid of offending the temple, and would do it as soon as he asked. Qin's Hixiu had seen Qin Lu's force before. He alone is worthy of a special forces team. His moves are fierce, ruthless, and cruel. Every move directly hits the most vulnerable point of the human body. Qin's Hixiu uses his brain. Although he has some skills, he can only be regarded as a little self-defense. But against Qin Lu, he had no chance of winning. No, there is no resistance at all. Qin's Hixiu was taken down by Qin Lu with 3 moves. He stepped on his chest and lay on the ground in a panic. Qin Lu, on the other hand, looked down at his twisted expression and cold eyes without any emotion. Qin's Hixiu felt like his ribs were about to be crushed by his crushing force. The heavy force made it extremely difficult for him to even breathe, let alone speak. After a moment, Qin Lu raised his head and looked indifferently at Nweo, who was shivering and shivering. "Don't kill me. I know I was wrong. I will apologize to Nan Yan and 4th brother. Please, don't kill me." Nweo's intestines are now green with regret. If she had known this would happen, she would never have flattered James and ran back. Qin Lu just gave her a cold glance at her begging for mercy, and then called his people to come up and take both of them away. Wu Yu has brought his secret guards to Jinqinj this morning to listen to his orders. After handing Qin's Hixiu and Nweo to Wu Yu, Qin Lu returned to the hospital. Hashtag. The first hospital. Nan Yan was checking Anziran's body. There was nothing abnormal about Anziran's body. Except for a slight injury on the back of his head, it was nothing serious. A slight mental disorder is a mental disorder after being controlled. It is not difficult to solve. It can be recovered after a few times of acupuncture. Nan Yan had some idea of the reason why he became Nweo's puppet. After testing his blood, she finally found the difference. Medication control. This wine is easy to fix. Nan Yan left Anziran in the examination room and went directly to the pharmacy to get medicine and prepare an antidote for him. 10 minutes later, she came back with a tube of medicine and fed him a drink. After another 10 minutes, Anziran finally felt that his soul had returned to its proper place, and his consciousness, which had been confused due to the influence of the drug, regained consciousness. "Yan, fortunately you are smart." After Anziran regained consciousness, she became frightened. Nweo's thoughts are much better. She knew that Yan believed in him and deliberately used him to harm Yan. If Yan hadn't discovered his abnormality and hadn't drank the cup of milk tea, I'm afraid she would have been controlled by Nweo now. Nan Yan reached out and pulled out the silver needle from his head, and asked quietly, "4th brother, do you feel better?" "It's okay." Anziran shook his head, then looked at Nan Yan, hesitating to speak. "What's wrong?" "4th brother." Anziran was stunned, and then said softly, "It's nothing, I'm just worried about you." He still didn't want to mention the Yan family. How the Yan family is doing has nothing to do with Yan. Finally, she left that place of right and wrong, and she shouldn't be dragged in again. What's more, with her disgust and resistance to Anjia, I'm afraid she wouldn't agree even if he asked. Let them take care of Anjia's affairs. For the sake of his grandfather, he had to find a way to help Angshi get through this difficult time. You have injured a nerve in your brain. Take a good rest for a few days. Don't overwork yourself, especially don't overuse your brain. Well, 4th brother knows. She was afraid that Mr. N would be worried when he saw Anziran was injured, so Nan Yan asked Anziran to go home and rest first. After solving the problem of Anziran being controlled, Nan Yan stood outside Mr. N's ward, not knowing whether to go in or not. If the old man saw her coming back after only going back for more than an hour, he would probably be angry again. Qin Lu saw her confusion and rubbed her head. Yan Yan, Mr. Hua and the others are still with your grandpa, why don't you go over and take a look? Well, I wanted to go over and have a look. Nan Yan pulled his big hand down and reflected, there are too many things, and I forgot about Master and the others. If it weren't for Qin Lu's reminder, she probably wouldn't have known how long it would take before she remembered it. After letting the nurse go in for a look and come back to tell her that Mr. N was in stable condition, Nan Yan and Qin Lu went to the Lu family together. Halfway through, Qin Lu received a call from Wu Yu. Wu Yu's weak voice came over, Master, Qin's Hixiu and Nwao were kidnapped. We don't know what kind of medicine we were given. Now our whole body is weak and we can't even stand up. Qin Lu's hand holding the steering wheel suddenly tightened, and asked coldly, who robbed it? The other party hid his face. You can't tell from the appearance alone. Send me your location. Qin Lu's expression was slightly cold, taking into account Nan Yan's presence, he restrained his anger. Brother, what's wrong? Nan Yan was so sleepy that she almost fell asleep. After Qin Lu answered the phone, she became energetic again. Qin Lu slowly exhaled a gloomy breath and said calmly, Qin's Hixiu and Nwao were kidnapped. Wu Yu and the others were attacked. Now they are completely weak and have no ability to save themselves. Let's save them first. Nan Yan raised her hand and pinched her eyebrows. Did other holy envoys from the temple save him? Probably not. Qin Lu analyzed rationally, Qin's Hixiu came to China this time because he wanted to control you to control me. The news Nwao gave him made him mistakenly think that you were already under his control. He came in a hurry, except for carrying him with him. The 8 bodyguards who protected him did not notify anyone. Qin's Hixiu is not that loyal to the temple. He wants to get the Qin family for himself. He will not merge the Qin family into the temple. Therefore, he will only hide it from the other holy envoys and the holy master of the temple. I guess he had some backup plans before. Qin Lu is more inclined to believe that someone who has a grudge against him took the opportunity to kidnap Qin's Hixiu and wanted to sell Qin's Hixiu a favor so that the two sides could cooperate and deal with him together. Qin Lu didn't tell Nan Yan these speculations because he didn't want her to worry too much. She already had too many things to worry about, and he didn't want to cause her any more worries. Yeah, but as long as he doesn't leave China so soon, we can find out his whereabouts. Now in the information age, it is easy for her to find someone's hiding place. There's no rush, go rescue Wu Yu and the others first. Hashtag. Wu Yu and his party are not in a very good condition right now. The car they were driving was rolled over on the side of the road. There were spider marks on one of the windows. Except for a bullet hole on it, it was basically sealed. They were driving when someone suddenly fired a poisonous gas bomb into their car. The poisonous gas spread rapidly, causing them to inhale the poisonous gas when breathing. By the time they realized something was wrong, the toxicity had already set in, and it was useless to hold their breath. After the other party took away Qin's Hixiu and Nwao, they also closed the opened car door. The toxins inside were being released, and the toxins in their bodies were increasing. Some people could no longer bear the strong toxicity and passed out. Qin Lu drove the car next to the overturned car, adjusted the angle, and hit it directly. Use clever force to push the overturned car over and return it to a normal state. After Nan Yan got out of the car, he quickly opened the 4 doors and said to Qin Lu, "Brother, don't come over. Let the toxins in the car disperse first." As for her, she is a doctor and needs to know the types of toxins. It is necessary to capture some poisonous gases. Miss Nan. Wu Yu opened his eyes with difficulty, shouted, rolled his eyes, and fainted. He was trying hard to wake up, and his tongue was almost bitten, so he stood up in front of him. Now that he saw the young master and Miss Nan Yan coming, he relaxed and could no longer hold on. After Nan Yan breathed in a little poisonous gas, she held her breath and put her hand on his wrist. While feeling his pulse, he analyzed the dangers of the poisonous gas she just breathed. After taking Wu Yu's pulse, she took the pulse of several other secret guards. After everything was done, she took out a pill bottle from her pocket and put a pill in their mouths for each of them. Qin Lu came to Nan Yan when the poisonous gas had almost dissipated. He waited until she finished her work before asking, "Yan Yan, how are you?" Nan Yan's voice was deep, "It's very toxic. If it's 10 minutes later, their lives will be in danger." The other party wanted the lives of Wu Yu and others. But he didn't expect that Wu Yu would have the willpower to stay awake and made a call to Qin Lu. This phone call saved them. "Take them directly to my grandpa's house. With Master here, it will be easier to save them." Hashtag. Qin's Hixio looked at the man in front of him and asked with some fear, "Excuse me, Your Excellency, why do you want to save me?" When he came to China this time, he did not notify anyone except a few close secret guards. Otherwise, he would not be so worried about falling into Qin Lu's hands. Not long ago, he thought he would never escape this fate, but the man in front of him saved him. However, he didn't think that the other party was just coming to the aid of someone in trouble. He definitely had a reason for saving him. "You are Qin Lu's enemy, then you are my friend," the man sneered softly. "We all have a grudge against Qin Lu. I saved you because I wanted to find a helper for myself." Qin's Hixio's uneasiness suddenly calmed down a lot. The man's words gave him a signal. The other party is a friend, not an enemy. They have a common enemy and will be a cooperative relationship in the future. So, thinking of this, he felt a lot more at ease. "How dare I ask for your name? Since we want to cooperate, we should be more honest. You only need to know that we are friendly forces, that's enough." The man had no intention of revealing his identity, and he didn't even have the intention of taking off the mask on his face. Qin's Hixio was very dissatisfied with his dishonest approach. But thinking that he had just saved his life, he seemed to have no right to ask for anything, so he could only hold back his temper and said yes. Nwao sat in the car like a fool, with a dull expression on her face. Her faith collapsed and her emotions almost collapsed. Now, she just wants to leave here and run away, far away. There is no place for her here. The man looked at her, "As a reward for saving you, give this woman to me." Nwao's eyes finally became focused. She quickly shrank her body back and said in panic, "Mr. James, don't give me to him, please." A woman's intuition makes her feel that the man in front of her is evil and not like a good person. If she falls into his hands, who knows what will happen to her. However, the next second, Qin's Hixio nodded readily, "Okay." Nwao was no longer of use to him. He could only use it to return a favor to this man, which he naturally wanted. "I don't agree. I am not his appendage or his property. I am an independent individual." Nwao hated Qin's Hixio to death. How much she admired him before, now she hates him. Gritting his teeth in hatred. "If you don't want to repay the favor for him, then you can repay it for yourself. I just saved your life." The man's feminine voice sent a chill down Nwao's back. Qin's Hixio, who was sitting next to her, suddenly grabbed her neck and said, "Nwao, you are looking for death." She actually embarrassed him and provoked him in front of him. "No. Spare me." Nwao discovered tragically that neither Qin's Hixio nor this mysterious man could be offended by her. They could easily control her life and death, and she had no other choice but to beg for mercy and accept her fate. "Qin's Hixio, she is mine now. Her life or death is not decided by you." Qin's Hixio let go of Nwao and said to the man, "Sorry, I'm just too angry." Nwao covered her neck, huddled in her seat and coughed suppressedly. Tears blurred her eyes, covering the despair in her eyes. Qin Ye looked out the window and asked, "Sir, where are you planning to take us? A safe place for you to hide." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 436. Lu family. Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were discussing whether to go to the hospital to visit Mr. An and see if their precious apprentice needed help, when two cars drove in. What happened? Hua Shifang looked sideways outside and saw many servants passing by and then lifting a few people out of the car. Nan Yan and Qin Lu are also outside. Sun Chan took a look and said with doubts on his face, "I don't know, senior brother, let's go out and take a look. I guess something happened to that girl Yan Yan." Yes, when Hua Shifang and Sun Chan came out, the servants also carried Wu Yu and others into the living room. Nan Yan and Qin Lu followed them. "Yan Yan, what's wrong? What happened to those people? Master, help me save them first." Nan Yan did not explain first. The poison in Wu Yu and the others was relatively vicious. The longer the delay, the greater the damage to their bodies. This was also the reason why Nan Yan would rather take the longer way to the Lu family to find Hua Shifang instead of taking them directly back to the first hospital. Even though the road back to the hospital was shorter, she was the only one to treat so many of them. Although Tao Qingming is here, Tao Qingming's medical skills cannot be compared with his master. Mr. Tao is not wrong in dealing with ordinary illnesses, but he is not very good at detoxifying, especially this extremely bad poison. This was something she learned from her previous conversation with Tao Qingming. When Hua Shifang saw Nan Yan's serious expression, he didn't say anything more and saved people first. Sun Chan saw their master and apprentice busy, grabbed Qin Lu, and called him to inquire about the situation. After listening to Qin Lu's story, he gritted his teeth and snorted for a long time. The An family and the Qin family are just like chicken feathers. By the way, Qin Ye and An Weiao, you must catch these two people. Those who want to hurt Yan Yan must not let them go easily. Sun Chan is not a bodhisattva, he is very protective of his shortcomings. Not only did he protect his shortcomings, he also had a particularly violent temper. If Nan Yan hadn't been hurt, how could he have remained so calm? Qin Lu was respectful and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, Mr. Sun, no matter where Qin Ye and An Weiao are hiding, I will find them and make them pay for what they have done." Sun Chan waved his hand, "You can't help here, so don't wait here. Go investigate and recruit them as soon as possible." Qin Lu. He heard an obvious dislike from Sun Chan's tone. It was just for this reason that he was driven away. But he had no choice but to agree, and looked into the living room again. Seeing that Nan Yan was too busy to raise his head, he pinched his eyebrows and went to investigate first. Mr. Lu Zhengting, had students come to his door and went to give them some guidance. When he came back after finishing his work, he saw 6 or 7 people lying side by side in the living room, and he was almost frightened. After listening to Sun Chan's explanation, his brows furrowed a little. Then he turned around and walked out. "Mr. Lu, where are you going?" "I'm going to find my useless daughter." Lu Zhengting was furious this time. He never thought that An Weiao would be so ambitious. She occupied Yan Yan's identity, enjoyed 18 years of prosperity and wealth in the An family, and received the best education, but she had such a vicious mind. Not only was she ungrateful to Yan Yan, but she also targeted her everywhere. Lu Zhengting also secretly regretted it. He was too indifferent to Nan Yan before. Even though he knew she was his granddaughter, he didn't see her a few times after she came back, let alone support her. It was his fault that she suffered so much bullying. But what he was most angry about was Lu Lihua, the mother. It is understandable that she prefers An Weiao, whom she raised since childhood, but if she is so indifferent to her biological daughter and allows others to bully her, is she still a human being? In the past, he could still suppress his temper. After all, everything was over, and there was no point in going over old scores. But now, he must teach Lu Lehua a lesson. Sun Quan has little interest in other people's housework. But he could also tell that Lu Zhengting wanted to vent his anger on Nan Yan. Yan Yan's grandfather seems to be a person who is really good to Yan Yan. In this way, Sun Quan looked at Lu Zhengting with more enthusiasm. Do you need me to accompany you? Lu Zhengting. It would be inappropriate for him to discipline his daughter and bring an outsider with him, right? But now that Sun Quan had spoken, he thought for a while, nodded and said, Mr. Sun is willing to go with me on this trip, so let's go together. So, Sun Quan followed Lu Zhengting, and they went to An's house together. Hashtag. Settle down. Lu Lehua hasn't woken up since she drank the glass of water Nweo gave her, and fell asleep in the bedroom. The An family's servants were all in panic because of the An family's affairs. Moreover, Nweo ordered them not to come to the main villa, so they didn't know that so many things had happened in the past 2 days. Lu Zhengting searched for Lu Lehua for a long time, almost thinking that she was not at home, and then learned from the housekeeper that Lu Lehua had not gone out since she came back. The eldest lady said that the madam was stimulated and didn't want to see anyone. She didn't even have the appetite to eat. She kept herself locked in the room. Mr. Lu, would you like to go to the madam's bedroom? The housekeeper is also an old man who has worked in the An family for decades. It feels quite uncomfortable to see the good home become like this. Lu Zhengting and Sun Quan went upstairs together and knocked on the bedroom door. After knocking for a long time, no one came to open the door. Are you sure she didn't leave the An family? No, I just asked the guard, and he only saw the lady come back, but didn't see her go out. Go get the spare key. Yes, Mr. Lu. The housekeeper hurried to find the spare key, and soon came with the spare key and opened the door. This is the bedroom, and they are all men, so they definitely can't go in directly, so they called a maid to see if Lu Lehua is inside. The maid went in and saw Lu Lehua lying on the bed, and first called Madam in a low voice, but Lu Lehua didn't mean to wake up. Then she increased the volume, but she still didn't wake up. She quickly pushed Lu Lehua with her hands, and seeing that she couldn't wake her up, she hurriedly shouted outside, Madam is here. But Madam is not in a good condition. I can't wake her up no matter how hard I try. This sentence made Lu Zhengting, who was waiting outside, a little nervous. He didn't care that this was his daughter's bedroom and his daughter was sleeping, and strode in directly. Sun Quan thought about it and followed. Ziahua. Ziahua. Lu Zhengting called a few times, and his face suddenly changed. Quick, call 120 emergency number. Even if he was angry with Lu Lehua was his biological daughter after all, so how could he ignore her? I'll take a look at her. Sun Quan volunteered, then walked to the bed, placed Lu Lehua's hand flat on the bed, and reached out to press her wrist. Lu Zhengjun asked nervously, Old Sun, how is my daughter? Sun Quan put down her hand, with a look of as expected, poisoned. Poisoned. Lu Zhengting was stunned for a moment, then thought of Nweo. No need to think, it was definitely that ungrateful bastard who poisoned Lu Lehua. Is the poison strong? Is her life in danger? She is unconscious now, what should I do? It's not a fatal poison, it will just make her unconscious, but if it goes on for a long time, she won't eat or drink, and will eventually starve to death. The premise is that if she is not detoxified. Lu Zhengting's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, Old Sun, please save my daughter. Sun Quan said, It's not difficult to detoxify, I'll let her wake up first. You ask the kitchen to make some porridge for her to replenish her energy, she hasn't eaten for 2 days, and her stomach is very weak. Yes. Butler, go and tell the kitchen to make porridge. Sun Quan is Hua Shifang's junior brother, and he is also the king of medicine, and his medical skills are not bad. There were no silver needles here, so he simply asked the maid to find a few sewing needles, burn them with fire to disinfect them, and gave her acupuncture. After the first needle was inserted, Lulahua woke up and cried out weakly in pain. Then he opened his eyes blankly. Where is this? She had slept for 2 days and 2 nights, and her whole body was in a very chaotic state. She didn't even react for a while, where she was. After 2 seconds of stunned, looking at the familiar environment in the room, she recognized that she was in the bedroom, and then saw Lu Zhengting again, and asked in confusion, "Dad, why are you here? If I don't come again, I guess no one will know if you die here." Lu Zhengting had a cold face and his tone was not very good. Ah! Lulahua was about to speak, and was stabbed by Sun Quan again. He screamed again in pain, and then looked at Sun Quan. "Why did you stab me? Old Sun is saving you. If it weren't for him, you probably don't know how long you would be unconscious." Lulahua's mind was a little confused. She was just sleeping, why was she suddenly dying? Besides, she didn't feel anything wrong, did she? Except that she felt very weak and frail. Sun Quan gave Lulahua 3 injections, and Lulahua finally woke up completely. She saw the time, and she actually slept for 2 days. Then Lu Zhengting told her that Nwao had poisoned her. Impossible. Lulahua shook her head, obviously unwilling to believe it. Yao Yao is so filial, it's impossible for her to poison me. Pa! Lulahua was slapped in the face. And Lu Zhengting, who hit her, had disappointment and anger in his eyes. Lulahua covered her face and screamed in disbelief, "Dad, why did you hit me? I just want to wake you up from your obsession. Do you know that Nwao not only poisoned you, but also controlled Xiran and let him harm Yanyan? She didn't regard you as her relatives at all. She came back for revenge." No. No, Lulahua was hit hard. Yao Yao is so well behaved and sensible, how could she do such a thing? You must have misunderstood. Lu Zhengting looked at her stubborn look and was so angry that his eyes went black. Forget it if you don't believe it. When you die in her hands, you will blame yourself for being stupid, and you can't blame anyone else. Lu Zhengting was so angry that he said, "Yanyan will have nothing to do with you in the future. I only recognize Yanyan. Since you don't believe me and only believe your adopted daughter, then live with her for the rest of your life and don't go back to the Lu family. Old son, let's go." For someone like Lulahua, she will not really wake up unless she sees Nwao's betrayal with her own eyes. No matter how much he said now, it would be useless and could not change her opinion. Lulahua covered his face and looked at the backs of Lu Zhengting and Sun Quan gloomily, full of twisted hatred. It's Nan Yan again. She was the one who was playing tricks on him, deliberately making Dad believe her lies and framing Yao Yao. It must be like this. She didn't believe that Yao Yao would hurt her. Lulahua gritted her teeth, and her disgust and hatred for Nan Yan almost reached its peak. The daughter she gave birth to was to defeat her. Hashtag. After returning to the car, Lu Zhengting slowly suppressed his temper. "Old son, I'm sorry to embarrass you." Sun Quan said without comment, "Yan Yan doesn't need such a mother, having a grandfather like you is enough." Today really made him learn a lot. There are really people who are so stupid. Even with the evidence and the truth in front of her, she still firmly believed in the adopted daughter. There is something wrong with her brain. Anyway, Lulahua is not Nan Yan's real mother. She is just the mother of the body she was reborn into. She won't have much feelings for her. So, no matter how partial she is, it will not affect her. Lu Zhengting didn't have the face to excuse Lulahua. He could only sigh heavily and said nothing. Lu family. Nan Yan and Hua Shifang worked together and spent nearly 2 hours to detoxify Wu Yu and the others. They were out of danger. But they still needed to rest for a few more days to recover their strength. Yan Yan, you've been tired for so long, go and rest first. Hua Shifang's tone did not allow for refusal. Nan Yan faced Hua Shifang's gaze and nodded obediently. Well, master, I'll ask you to take care of them first, I'll go to sleep for a while. But before she had time to rest, another call came in. After she answered the call, Nolan's anxious voice reached her ears. Yan Yan, the third brother is injured and in danger, come quickly. What's going on? Nan Yan felt her nerves tense. Where are you? I'll go there now. Nolan reported an address and told her to hurry. Nan Yan looked at Hua Shifang with a serious expression. Master, the second senior brother called and said that the third senior brother was injured and in critical condition. We will go there immediately. Hua Shifang's eyes condensed and he waved his hand. Let's go and see you. Bye. Nolan hung up the phone and squatted down, looking directly at Fu Yubai's confused and angry eyes. Third senior brother, I didn't want to do anything to you, but you were nosy and discovered my secret. I have no choice but to let you go to see the King of Hell. You are not the second senior brother. Who are you? Fu Yubai didn't believe that the second senior brother would attack him. He met him by chance and saw him bringing Qin's Hixiu and Nwao into the community. He wanted to see what he was going to do. As a result, he saw that he actually wanted to join forces with Qin's Hixiu to deal with Qin Lu. It was he who couldn't bear it and asked him why he did this. As a result, he was injured by him without any preparation. If I'm not your second senior brother, who else could I be? Are you thinking about the situation of your junior sister and thinking that I am also another person who replaced your second senior brother? Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 437. I'm not your second senior brother, who else could I be? Are you thinking of the little junior sister's situation and thinking that your second senior brother's body has been occupied and replaced by another person? Nolan said this without any guilt, and even had a faint smile. His appearance is inherently feminine and beautiful, and when he smiles like this, he is even more ghostly. No. You're not. Fu Yubai struggled to speak. He used his last strength to look at Nolan and said the most determined words. He didn't believe that the second senior brother would become such a person, let alone that the second senior brother would kill him. Nan Yan had not spent that long with Wen Heng, and her feelings for him were not as deep as those for Fu Yubai. But Fu Yubai and Wen Heng spent a long time together and had a deep relationship. Although the three brothers and sisters went their separate ways after leaving Shenangjia and rarely contacted each other, their 10 years of living in Shenangjia had long become the most colorful memory in their lives. He absolutely did not believe that the person in front of him was Wen Heng. Whether you believe it or not, I just talked a lot of nonsense. Third junior brother, let's go. Nolan smiled evilly, wanting to give him the final blow. Wen Heng yelled angrily in his mind, Nolan, give me your hand. I told you to stop. Wen Heng almost went crazy. His strong hatred made him break free from Nolan's suppression for a moment and regain control of his body. He quickly threw away Fu Yubai's hand that was attacking him, and while he was still able to control his body, he said urgently, Yubai, don't believe him, he is a ghost, an evil spirit, that is not me. I was. Before he finished speaking, the expression on his face changed in a distorted way. After a few seconds, the anxiety and concern turned back to evil femininity. I accidentally let him run out. Was their junior brother frightened? Nolan pretended to be concerned, but placed his hand on Fu Yubai's heart. Fu Yubai had already suffered serious internal injuries. If his heart suffered another heavy blow, he would definitely die. Even if Hua Shifang and Nan Yan came, they couldn't save him. Fu Yubai already knew from the words when Hung suddenly took control of his body and said that the person in front of him was indeed not his second senior brother. His state is different from that of his junior sister. The little junior sister took over her body after the owner of her current body died. The unknown person in front of him had forcibly seized his body and taken control of his body while his second senior brother was still there, and his second senior brother was also still there. He wanted to tell the news to his master and junior sister who didn't know the situation yet, but the person in front of him probably wouldn't give him a chance. Nolan had murderous intent in his eyes. The softer the smile on his face, the more sinister the aura around him. Fu Yubai kept vomiting blood from his mouth. Except for the movement of his eyes, he could no longer say a word. Wen Hung screamed in Nolan's mind that no matter what the cost, he must keep his third junior brother. Nolan, if you dare to hurt my third junior brother, I will die with you. I can take back my body once, and I can take it back a second time. If you dare to touch him, I swear, as long as I take back control of my body, I will end the life of this body as soon as possible. Stop it, Nolan, you hurt him, I won't let you go. Wen Hung's shouting made Nolan lose some strength. Wen Hung regained control of his body today, which exceeded his expectations. Moreover, it took a lot of effort for him to suppress Wen Hung's consciousness and regain control of his body. After all, the owner of this body is Wen Hung. As a foreign consciousness, even if his mental power is much stronger than Wen Hung, in terms of integration with the body, he cannot compare with the owner of the body. Okay, shut up. Nolan laughed as if he was conniving, can't I just kill him? Nolan's compromise calmed Wen Hung's violent mood a little. However, since he knows my secret, he cannot be allowed to remember this memory. Wen Hung understood what he meant. Okay, I'll hypnotize him. Wen Hung is a hypnotist, one who is very powerful and can be ranked among the top in the world. But he can hypnotize anyone, but not the monster in his body. You'd better be good and don't play tricks. If you let me know what backup you have, then I won't let anyone you care about. Nolan said a harsh word and handed over control of his body. Wen Hung took over his body again, looked at Fu Yubai with some sadness and helplessness, and said softly, I'm sorry. Fu Yubai was vomiting blood while trying hard to grab his hand. He knew that the person now was Wen Hung, and wanted to say something to him, but his severely injured body prevented him from even saying a word. Yubai, in order to keep you alive, I can only make you lose this memory. Don't blame me. Wen Hung said in a low voice, raised his head, and stared into his eyes. Dark light flowed and captured his mind. Fu Yubai looked a little anxious, as if he wanted to stop him. But unable to withstand his hypnosis, the light in his eyes gradually faded and he became confused. After hypnosis, Fu Yubai fainted directly. Wen Hung carefully wiped the blood from his mouth and murmured in a low voice, Yubai, I just want everyone to be well. The next second, he was snatched away from control of his body and returned to the sea of consciousness. Wen Hung had just performed a hypnosis on Fu Yubai, which consumed a lot of mental energy and made him feel depressed. But he still threatened fiercely, Nolan, if you want to coexist peacefully with me, then don't touch them. They are my bottom line. Okay, got it? Nolan's tone was gloomy, and after feeling depressed, his mood became much worse. But there was no way, he and Wen Hung were of the same life, both prospered and suffered losses. He really didn't dare to touch Wen Hung's bottom line and let him die with him in an extremely violent mood. In order for him to better control this body, he had to find a way to make Wen Hung completely lose control of his body. Hashtag. Nan Yan drove all the way, and it still took nearly 15 minutes to get from the Lu family to where Fu Yubai and the others were. After the rapid braking sound stopped the fast-moving car, Nanyan even forgot to turn off the engine. Nanyan unbuckled his seat belt, opened the door and ran out. Hua Shifang was a few seconds behind her, and the master and apprentice came to Fu Yubai and Nolan one after another. When Nan Yan saw Fu Yuebai's appearance at this time, his heart was tightly clenched. He didn't even check his injuries. He first took out a ginseng king pill and stuffed it into his mouth, and then hung up his life. He opened his face and asked Nolan with suppressed anger, "Second senior brother, who injured third senior brother?" "I don't know. When I came here, Yubai was already like this. The person who wanted to harm him probably thought he was dead and didn't make up for it, leaving him alive." Nolan's explanation was so reasonable that neither Nanyan nor Hua Shifang could find anything wrong with it. Anger rose in Nanyan's heart, but was suppressed again. "Go to the hospital first. Fu Yuebai's injury requires the help of modern medical equipment. His failing heart and lungs couldn't support him." Hua Shifang's hands were like lightning, and he sealed several of Fu Yuebai's acupuncture points with several silver needles, but the subsequent treatment was not needed here. He and Nanyan mean the same thing. "Send Fu Yuebai to the hospital first." Nanyan and Nolan carefully got Fu Yuebai into the car, and then the car accelerated wildly, heading to the hospital at an even faster speed. Qin Lu learned the news from Tao Qingming when Nanyan and Hua Shifang entered the operating room to rescue Fu Yuebai. He went back to the hospital. It took nearly 5 hours of resuscitation before he was out of danger and his signs of life were temporarily stabilized. After Nanyan came out of the operating room, Hua Shifang took advantage of her and stabbed a silver needle in the back of her neck. Nanyan's body softened, she closed her eyes and fell back. Qin Lu caught her quickly, held her in his arms, and then looked at Hua Shifang in confusion. Yanyan's physical and mental energy has been consumed too much, so she must have a good rest. However, with her character, she will immediately find out who injured Yubai and will not take the initiative to rest. Therefore, Hua Shifang used this method to force Nanyan, who had not slept much for 2 days and 2 nights, to have a sleep. Qin Lu understood. "I'll take her to Dean Tao's lounge." "Yes." Hua Shifang nodded, and then explained, "Light a piece of soothing incense in the room where she sleeps so that she can sleep longer." "Good." Qin Lu carried Nanyan to Tao Qingming's lounge. Tao Qingming was also outside the operating room just now. Naturally, he heard what Hua Shifang said and asked someone to get a box of the best soothing incense and an incense burner to bring them in. After Tao Qingming finished delivering the incense and left, Qin Lu closed the door to the lounge, then returned to the bed and helped Nanyan take off her coat, shoes, and socks so that she could sleep more comfortably. The girl's skin is as white as jade, her facial features are exquisite but gorgeous, and she is incredibly beautiful. Only by looking at her sleeping face did Qin Lu know what sleeping beauty was. She had been staying up very hard recently and had been lacking rest. She was already mentally exhausted, but now she had stayed up for 2 days and 2 nights in a row, and there was a faint blue-black color under her eyes. With his fingertips gently caressing her smooth cheek, Qin Lu's voice sounded a little helpless. "Little girl, why don't you know how to feel sorry for yourself?" But he also knew that Nanyan had such a temperament. And he was also attracted by her personality, until his heart was filled with her, and his cold heart became soft for her. "Yanyan, I seem to be increasingly unable to control my impulse towards you. Only he himself knows how much influence Nanyan has on him. He is a normal man. When facing the girl he likes, he has been suppressing his feelings and holding back to prevent himself from hurting her. However, if you can completely restrain yourself, it wouldn't be called love." Qin Lu carefully kissed her lips, absorbing her sweetness, and rolled her lips side to side. Nanyan was sleeping deeply, and Fu Yuebai, who had been struggling to save his energy, was already exhausted. Hua Shifang's injection made her fall asleep, and before she fell asleep, she knew that Fu Yuebai's life was not in danger, so she relaxed and automatically entered a deep sleep. Therefore, she didn't feel anything about what Qin Lu did after she fell asleep. Qin Lu felt that he was a little despicable. He knew clearly that she didn't respond to the outside world, but he couldn't control himself more and more, and kissed her lips until they were slightly swollen. Just before he could no longer control the clamoring desires in his body, he let go of her, got up and went to the bathroom in embarrassment, and washed his face with cold water to wake himself up. After calming down in the bathroom for more than 10 minutes, Qin Lu didn't dare to stay in the lounge any longer. He went to find Hua Shifang. In the ward where Fu Yubai had stayed before, he asked in a deep voice. "Mr. Hua, who was he injured by?" "I don't know." Wen Hong found out that he was injured and contacted Yanyan and me. After we went there, we didn't find anything abnormal, so we had to bring him back and rescue him first. Hua Shifang's face was heavy, and there was a sharp and gloomy aura lingering around him. His disciple was hurt like this, how could he, the master, not be angry? If he hadn't found the person who hurt Fu Yubai, he would have gone to teach Fu Yubai a lesson to the person who hurt him. No matter who hurt their junior brother, we must seek revenge for him. Nolan's acting skills are spot on, and he grasps the emotions of grief and anger very well. Hua Shifang clenched his right hand into a fist, suppressed his anger, and said calmly, "You didn't see the person who hurt him. We can only wait for him to wake up and know who hurt him before we can avenge him." Qin Lu glanced at Nolan twice, his eyes were deep, and then said, "Mr. Hua, if there is no need for my help, I will go back first." "Where are you going?" Hua Lao's tone became calm. It's one thing that he doesn't want to see Qin Lu. But now that his third apprentice was injured and his younger apprentice was in a coma, he didn't know to stay with him and improve his favorability in front of him. This was his fault. Hua Shifang was reluctant to let Nanyan become someone else's wife so quickly, but she really liked Qin Lu, and he wouldn't stop her forever. After being arrogant for a while, after seeing the sincerity shown by Qin Lu, he would still relent and agree. But now, Qin Lu's score in his heart has dropped. Snort. If you want to marry his apprentice, just wait a few more years. Qin Lu explained, "I'm going to find out who is targeting Yanyan and the people around her." As soon as Yanyan returned to Jinqinj, the other party couldn't wait to attack her and the people around her. If he couldn't find out the other party's identity and stop him in time, he wouldn't give up. Several incidents seemed like someone was pushing behind them. He even suspected that Qin's Hixia was also a chess piece of the other party, manipulated by the other party, and deliberately caused trouble for him, so as to confuse his judgment and make him make mistakes. After listening to Qin Lu's explanation, Mr. Hua's expression improved. He nodded and said, "Well, you go ahead." Qin Lu nodded, turned, and left the ward. Wen Hong, go check and find out who wants to attack Yanyan. "Yes, Master," Nolan responded respectfully. Hua Shifang's expression was slightly condensed. When he came back this time, he found that things were much more complicated and confusing than he imagined. Especially the things surrounding the young apprentice are layered one after another, and dangers emerge one after another. It seems that he has to protect his little apprentice. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 438. Nanyan slept until 10 o'clock in the evening before waking up. 6 or 7 hours of deep sleep restored her spirit very well, and she felt as if she had come to life again. The splitting headache before falling asleep was finally relieved. Just because the overdraft was so severe, she now felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. My legs felt like they were stepping on cotton, and I walked top-heavy to the water dispenser. I drank 2 glasses of cold water in a row, and my state was relieved a little. After taking a look at the sky outside, Nanyan put on her shoes and coat and walked out quickly. Fu Yubai's ward. Hua Shifang and Sun Chan were both there. Mr. Lu had come to visit Mr. N before, and then came over to take a look at Fu Yubai before returning to the Lu family. "Yanyan, have you slept well?" Hua Shifang was sitting on the sofa. When he saw Nanyan come in, he raised his head and asked her. Nanyan had no temper in front of Hua Shifang. Even if she knew that Hua Shifang deliberately knocked her out and forced her to rest, she couldn't be angry. After all, his original intention was to feel sorry for her because she was exhausted mentally and physically, and just wanted her to rest. She walked straight up to him and said, "Master, how is the situation of the third senior brother? If the situation is stable, he will wake up tomorrow, and then we will know who hurt him." Hua Shifang's expression was not relaxed because Fu Yuebai's injury had stabilized and his life was not in danger. He was still frowning deeply. He paused, stared at Nan Yan, and then asked, "Yan Yan, how many enemies have you made outside these years?" "This." Nan Yan was a little embarrassed, it seems to be a bit much. She was really helpless as to why she had made so many enemies over the years and had so many people who wanted her life. But it seems that the one who really wants her life has not appeared yet. Because her current identity is still a secret, those people just think that she is dead, and the grievances of the past have now disappeared with the wind. But it seems that there are many people who want her life now. Except for Nweo, who was not on the stage, the others probably wanted to use her to threaten Qin Lu. Hua Shifang's face turned a little darker. "Then you should be more careful in the future and don't fall into the trap of those people again." Sun Quan said in a deep voice, "Yan Yan, who are your enemies? How about we just strike first and deal with them in advance?" Sun Quan has a relatively straightforward temperament. He likes to be straightforward and hates plotting. He doesn't like to use his brain too much when he can do things with his hands. Of course, Sun Quan is not a brainless person. Nan Yan was shocked by his words at first, and then slowly shook her head. "Second master, your proposal may not work." "Why?" "It's too involved," Nan Yan explained. "It's okay if it's one person or two people, but my enemies include not only extremely vicious people, but also many people from the dark forces. Besides, we are in troubled times now, so it is best not to go see and disturb them for the time being, otherwise the situation will become more complicated." Nan Yan was not a murderous person, otherwise none of those who had troubled her would be left now. Unless the other party is looking for death and offends her, she should try to avoid killing as much as possible. She was afraid that if the killing was too much, she would be lost and immersed in the bloodthirsty pleasure. She didn't want to become a murderer. Sun Quan was not very happy. "Then wait until they all come to you." "No, those people don't know that I'm still alive now, and it's not that group that's causing trouble for me this time. Wait until I resolve these matters first. Don't worry about the rest." Nan Yan can still control his temper. Because Shen Junqing and Bai Chen were still waiting for her to rescue them. This is the first priority. Thinking of this, Nan Yan said to Hua Shifang, "Master, in a few days, you can come with me to Country M and help me see my two friends." Hua Shifang nodded and agreed. After seeing Fu Yuebai's condition and chatting with the two elders in the ward for a while, Nan Yan stood up and said, "I'll go see Grandpa first." "Go ahead. Mr. N's situation today is much better than yesterday. Now N's Hisai and Nsiding are taking care of the old man here." When they see Nan Yan come in, the two brothers have different expressions. "Yan Yan, you're here." Regardless of the complicated expressions of his two grandsons, Mr. N smiled when he saw Nan Yan, who had been unhappy all day. N's Hisai /U0026 Nsiding. This partiality and differential treatment should not be too obvious. They were also his biological grandsons, and they came to take care of him sincerely, so why didn't they deserve a good look? As soon as Nan Yan came, everything changed immediately. Nan Yan just regarded them as nothing, without looking at them or paying attention to them, and walked directly to the old man's hospital bed. "How do you feel?" "It's better." Mr. N looked at her eagerly. "Yan Yan, are you angry with Grandpa for not seeing Grandpa all day?" The old man waited all day with his hands cradling his neck. Every time someone opened the door and came in, he would get excited, thinking it was Nan Yan coming to see him. As a result, someone else came in every time. If Nan Yan hadn't come now, he would probably have called her when he got up tomorrow. No, why am I angry with you? It's just that I overslept and wasted my time to see you. Nan Yan didn't say anything about Fu Yubai's injury. She didn't want Mr. N to worry about other things. Don't say anything you shouldn't say to him. You're tired. Mr. N frowned in distress. It's Grandpa's fault for making Yan worry. You are better than anything else if you take good care of your body. Nan Yan sighed, his tone a bit harsh. Grandpa, I am not a god. Even my master dare not say that we can reverse the decline. It goes against nature. Your body has suffered irreversible damage due to years of depletion. I have been using medicine to warm your body in the past few months. Slowly nourish your almost exhausted body. But you only spent 1 day, and all my efforts were in vain, and even made your body weaker. This time, Master and I worked together to bring you back from hell. But if it happens again, Master and I probably won't be able to save you. Nan Yan must let Mr. N know how serious his physical injuries were. He really couldn't take any more hits. Mr. N grabbed Nan Yan's hand with his big old hands and said seriously, Grandpa knows. When Grandpa gets better, he will go to the imperial capital with you and take good care of himself. Don't care about anything else. I will take good care of myself from now on and wait to see you get married and have children with my own eyes. He knew that Nan Yan had no feelings for Anxia. The only people she cared about were him, her grandfather, and Anziran, her fourth brother. How could he not be there when she got married? He also wanted to send Nan Yan to Qinlu as a relative and to see her happy. Hisai and Ansiding didn't know that Nan Yan was taking Mr. N away, but they were shocked when they heard it. Ansiding murmured to himself, Grandpa actually wants to go to the imperial capital with Nan Yan. Does Grandpa really plan to stop caring about the N family's affairs in the future? Hisai's mood changed quickly, and a gloomy look slipped through his eyes. He also wanted to use Nanyan's connections and the reputation of divine Dr. Hua to restore An's reputation, which had been declining in recent days. How could Nan Yan be allowed to take the old man away like this and draw a clear line between him and the An family in the future? Absolutely not. But now the old man's body can't stand the stimulation. In order to avoid self-defeating, he doesn't plan to say anything in front of Mr. N. Anyway, Mr. N is so ill that he won't be able to move in a short time. He will find time to talk to Nan Yan a few more times. If her attitude remains this cold, it's not too late to find a way. Nan Yan patted Mr. N's hand and said softly, It's getting late. You have a good rest. I'll come see you tomorrow. Mr. N nodded. His precious granddaughter came to see him. Now that he is in a good mood, he can naturally sleep. Otherwise, he might have to grind for a long time before he can sleep. Seeing Nan Yan was about to leave, Hisai gave Ansiding a wink and followed him leisurely. Yan Yan. Hisai stopped Nan Yan who was about to leave. Nan Yan's eyebrows were slightly impatient, and she frowned and said, Do you have anything else? Hisai was offended by her attitude and reminded him in an unpleasant tone, I am your eldest brother. Nan Yan said coldly, I only have fourth brother, don't recognize me here. Yan Yan, whether you admit it or not, I am your biological big brother. I know you have a problem with me. Yesterday I also apologized to you for what happened before. If you are not satisfied, I can apologize to you again now. Hisai thought that by lowering his posture like this, Nan Yan would treat him better. Pity. I don't want to hear your apology. If you have nothing else to do, don't bother me. Nan Yan turned to leave. Before turning around, she added, I forgot to tell you that I have a bad temper. So, don't come for a fight. After leaving these words, Nan Yan left without caring that Hisai's face was livid with anger. Hisai stared at her back gloomily, clenching the hands hanging by her sides into fists. He really has no brothers and is so naughty. If it weren't for the fact that she was the apprentice of divine Dr. Hua, he wouldn't bother to come to her at all. But after repeatedly running into obstacles with Nan Yan, he became more and more dissatisfied with Nan Yan. "Brother, what did you say to Nan Yan?" Inciting saw him coming in with a livid face, approached him and asked in a low voice. He was afraid that Mr. N would hear it. However, Mr. N was cultivating sleepiness with his eyes closed, and ignored the two brothers and ran to the room outside to talk. "I didn't say anything." N's Hisai calmed down his temper and said gloomily, "It's not that easy for her not to admit that she is from the N family." Inciting frowned. He doesn't have much affection for Nan Yan, and feels that it's up to her whether she returns to An's home or not. But he obeyed Nji's words. Since his eldest brother wanted her to come back, she should come back. "Brother, what are you going to do? As long as Grandpa stays in the N family, it will be impossible for her to completely break away from the relationship. He has eyes, so he naturally knows how much Nan Yan cares about Mr. N. In order to settle down, he doesn't mind using his grandfather. Grandpa knows that he is trying to settle down, so he will be considerate of him." Hashtag. Nan Yan called Qin Lu and after knowing his location, drove to find him. During the day, the injuries to Wu Yu and the others had not been resolved, and she planned to help investigate. The top floor of the Landis Hotel. Nan Yan rang the doorbell, and soon someone came to open the door. When Zhang Sen saw her, he respectfully called Miss Nan. Although Zhang Sen didn't spend much time with Qin Lu, and didn't know Nan Yan as well as Wu Yu, he had heard Wu Yu talk about Nan Yan's deeds. In addition, with Qin Lu's relationship, he was naturally respectful to Nan Yan. Nan Yan nodded and asked, "Where's my brother?" "In the study." Zhang Sen took Nan Yan to the study. In the study, there were 3 running laptops in front of Qin Lu. Nan Yan came behind him and asked softly, "Brother, have you found out the identity and whereabouts of the other party?" Qin Lu moved the computer chair back a little, then brought Nan Yan to his arms, let her sit on his legs, and he circled her waist from behind. "Find out the whereabouts of Qin's Hixiu. As for the person who saved him, there is no clue yet." Qin Lu's chin gently rested on the top of her head and rubbed it lightly. Zhang Sen saw this scene. This was the first time he saw the young master so soft, gentle posture. Zhang Sen widened his eyes. This is still the Qin master he is familiar with. I have always heard Wu Yu say how much the young master loves Miss Nan, but that's what he said. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he was still quite shocked. If Wu Yu was here, he would probably be shocked to see this scene. In the past, the young master was very restrained and always kept a distance from the eldest brother rationally, without crossing the line. But now Master Qin is no longer restrained, and has openly expressed his love for Miss Nan. Nan Yan was a little uncomfortable with Qin Lu's intimate behavior at first. But she soon relaxed and her eyes fell on the several laptop screens in front of her. The positions displayed on the several screens were different. The one in the middle was facing a window. From the window, 2 figures could be vaguely seen. Nan Yan didn't need to guess that they were Qin's Hixiu and Nweo. "Brother, you determined their location but didn't catch them. Do you want to wait for the person who rescued them to appear and check the identity of the person behind them?" "Yeah." Qin Lu's voice was slightly hoarse. Like Nan Yan, he stayed up for 2 days and 2 nights. Nan Yan had slept for 6 or 7 hours before, but he didn't close his eyes for a minute. After returning from the hospital, he began to investigate Qin's Hixiu's whereabouts. After finding Qin's Hixiu's whereabouts, he also investigated the clues of the person behind him. If we talk about fatigue, he is no more relaxed than Nan Yan. Zhang Sen looked at Qin Lu with his eyes closed and a little tired, and said, "Miss Nan, the young master has been busy since he came back, and he hasn't eaten yet. He had advised several times, but the young master ignored him. So he dared to deliberately bring up this matter in front of Nan Yan. Nan Yan turned around from Qin Lu's arms, her eyes were a little cold. "Give me an explanation." Qin Lu was silent for a moment, and explained, "Yan Yan, I didn't mean to not eat, I just didn't feel hungry at all." Nan Yan pursed her lips, got up from his legs, grabbed his hand, and dragged him up. "Go eat. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 439. Zhang Sen was watching from the side. He had tried to persuade Mr. Qin, who didn't want to eat for a long time, but Miss Nan said one word and he immediately agreed obediently. His mentality had collapsed. Mr. Qin's double standards were too powerful. However, on second thought, Miss Nan was actually more powerful. It was not easy for ordinary people to manage their Mr. Qin. Just when Zhang Sen was wandering in the sky, he heard Qin Lu's order, "Zhang Sen, watch the surveillance." "Yes, Mr. Qin," Zhang Sen responded quickly, and then sat in the seat where Qin Lu and Nan Yan had sat before. And Mr. Qin took Nan Yan's hand, left the study, and went out to eat. After Nan Yan woke up, she only drank 2 glasses of water. She didn't feel anything before, but now she walked out with Qin Lu, she also felt hungry. Qin Lu was careful. Seeing her pressing her stomach, he guessed that she probably hadn't eaten either. He frowned with heartache and asked softly, "What do you want to eat?" Nan Yan thought for a while. At this time, the restaurant should be closed. "Let's go to the food stalls." Although it would be easy for Qin Lu to designate which restaurant to cook for them, Nan Yan didn't want to make it too much trouble. Besides, she hadn't eaten at the street food stalls for a long time, and she wanted to eat. Eating too much delicacies from mountains and seas would make you sick, and you would miss the taste of the streets and alleys if you didn't eat them for a long time. Okay. Qin Lu didn't care what to eat. Since Nan Yan wanted to eat, he would eat with her. It was past 11 o'clock in the evening, and the busiest time for the food stalls had passed, but there were still customers who came late to eat and drink happily around the open-air tables. Walking along the snack street, Nan Yan found a store that looked relatively clean and dragged Qin Lu over. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, both of them wore masks, not wanting to attract too much attention because of their appearance. Even after ordering fried and grilled skewers, they found a room instead of eating at the open-air round table outside. When the waiter came in to deliver the food they ordered, she was amazed to see the two of them taking off their masks. When she looked at Nan Yan again, she exclaimed in disbelief, Yan Shen. You are Yan Shen." The waiter was a girl of 18 or 19 years old. She was working part-time to experience life and earn a little living expenses with her own ability, so she came here as a summer worker. She didn't expect that she would meet Nan Yan, whom she always regarded as an idol, in the small shop where she worked today. Nan Yan put her index finger on her lips to tell her not to get too excited, and smiled slightly. "Do you want an autograph?" "Yes." Chen Hongyu nodded hurriedly, and her eyes flashed with light when she looked at Nan Yan. Nan Yan asked her to get paper and pen. She didn't know she would meet her little fans, and she didn't have the habit of carrying paper and pen with her, so the little fans needed to prepare paper and pen by themselves. Qin Lu propped up his head, with a smile in his eyes, watching her talking to fans. It would be great if there were no worries. Looking at the relaxed and natural smile on Nan Yan's face, he wanted her to stay like this and not carry those heavy burdens anymore. However, Qin Lu also understood that he had no right to control Nan Yan's life. She was not a flower in a greenhouse, but a thorny flower blooming on a cliff, tenacious and strong. He didn't need to take on all the things on her, just stay by her side and face those dangers with her. They would stand side by side, instead of her relying on him. Chen Hongyu took the autograph given to her like a baby, and took a photo with her before happily going to work. Before leaving, she even closed the door for them to prevent anyone from disturbing them again. Nan Yan took a sip of juice and picked up a skewer of roasted meat. Seeing Qin Lu leisurely pouring a glass of cold draft beer and drinking it slowly without eating the food on the table, she couldn't help asking, "Brother, don't you like to eat these?" "No, I'm not picky." Qin Lu stretched out his hand and pinched her face. "I'm just thirsty and want to drink something before eating." Oh. Since he said he was not picky, Nan Yan didn't care about him anymore and took the skewer to eat. She hadn't eaten at a food stall for several months and still missed it a little. In addition to the roasted and fried skewers, Nan Yan also ordered a spicy crayfish and some roasted seafood. She ate a sip of juice and a bite of meat, and she was very happy. After all, she hadn't eaten well for 2 days, and she didn't eat much today. She was really hungry. Qin Lu even ate these skewers full of fireworks in an extremely elegant way. The hands that held the power, pinching the signature, were not hurried or slow, as if he was tasting some delicacies. "Brother, you're not doing this right." Qin Lu raised his eyebrows. "You can't be so elegant when eating at a food stall. You won't be able to taste the essence of the food, and even the taste will be a little less." Nan Yan took half of the skewer in her hand. "You should eat it this way." Qin Lu looked at the piece of meat in his hand that he had put on the plate with chopsticks and was eating, and directly grabbed Nan Yan's hand, lowered his head and took off the remaining half of the skewer on her skewer. After chewing a few times and swallowing it, Qin Lu nodded seriously, "It tastes really good when eaten this way." Nan Yan. Why did she feel that Qin De Lao was teasing her by eating? "Whatever you want, it's your personal freedom to eat it any way you want, continue." She shouldn't talk too much. Qin Lu listened to her and started to eat the meat skewers directly without going through any extra procedures. After eating a few skewers, Qin Lu put on his gloves and started peeling the crayfish. After a while, a complete lobster tail was peeled off and placed on the plate in front of Nan Yan. Nan Yan was not polite to him either. If he peeled one off, she would eat one. Originally, she liked eating crayfish, but hated peeling them. "So I ate 2 to satisfy my craving, but it was too troublesome, so I didn't eat any more. Now that someone is peeling it off for her, she naturally wants to enjoy it." Qin Lu didn't mind it and peeled her off one after another. A plate of crayfish almost all went into her stomach. When the last one was left, Nanyan picked it up and didn't put it in his mouth, but brought it to Qin Lu's mouth. "Brother has been tired for so long, and the last one is a reward for you." Qin Lu smiled and said, "Okay." He opened his mouth and ate the lobster. "I am full." "Well, I'm full." Not only was she full, she was also a little overstuffed. Qin Lu took off his gloves that were stained with red oil, wiped the oil stains on his fingers with a wet wipe, and asked, "What else do you want to eat?" Nan Yan shook his head and said, "I don't want to eat any more. Let's go back. This is not a time to relax. After eating and drinking, we still have to work." Qin Lu also had this plan. They can't let their guard down for a day without catching the man behind the scenes. In just a few days, so many cases have been added. If they are not found, others may be harmed. After paying the bill, Nan Yan and Qin Lu left the food stall and prepared to go back. The waiter Chen Hongyu reluctantly sent the idol outside. "Smoke God, you haven't broadcast live recently. Are you very busy with your studies?" Nan Yan said, "Well, I'm a little busy." Chen Hongyu asked expectantly, "When I have free time in the future, will Yan Shen start a live broadcast?" "If I have time then, I will." "Very good." Chen Hongyu's face was full of excitement. "Smoke God, I will always support you." "Thanks." Hashtag. After coming out of the food stall, Nanyan and Qin Lu walked along the food street. The car parked outside the snack street. This section of the road was perfect for a walk to relieve some food. As they approached the parking place, Qin Lu's cell phone rang. It's Johnson's phone number. Qin Lu frowned slightly and answered. Master, the mysterious man appeared at Qin Hixio's side, but he seemed to know that there was surveillance nearby, and deliberately avoided all positions where his face could be illuminated. Only the neck was visible. Qin Lu said in a deep voice, "You stay in the study and continue to monitor. I will go there myself." "Okay, master." After hanging up the phone, Qin Lu looked at Nanyan. "Yanyan, let's go to Qin Hixio's place." The two quickly got in the car and went directly to the community where Qin Hixio was hiding. Nolan chose an older residential building for Qin Ye. Older communities have much less surveillance than newer communities and wealthy areas, and because there are many outside tenants and the situation is complex, they are most easily used to hide people. Qin Hixio is also a person who can bend and stretch. He can live in a 6-star hotel, a luxurious and comfortable mansion, or in a simple basement. The outside of this community looks old and dilapidated, but the interior decoration of the rooms is pretty good. In the second bedroom, he and Nweo happened to share a room. However, since being sent to this community, Nweo locked herself in the bedroom and never came out. She didn't want to see Qin Hixio or have any more contact with him. The god in her heart was completely shattered in front of her. Not only did she not have the slightest fondness for Qin Hixio, she also found him disgusting. But she hated him even if she hated him, and Nweo also knew that she didn't have the capital to resist him. Even if Qin Hixio is vulnerable in front of Qin Lu, he can easily control her life. If she wants to survive, she must not anger him and continue to obey his orders. Fortunately, she hid in the room for a whole day, and Qin Hixio didn't come to trouble her. But, she is so hungry. Open the door. Qin Hixio's cold voice came from outside the door. Nweo shrank, her eyes filled with resistance, and she didn't want to open the door. Qin Hixio stood outside the door with a gloomy expression. "I'll give you 3 seconds to open the door immediately." Nweo didn't dare to resist, so she could only grit her teeth, stand up obediently, and open the door. Qin Hixio glanced at her coldly and said coldly, "Go and eat." Nweo followed him to the living room. When I got to the living room, I discovered that there was another man in the living room. The man who saved them today. Nolan is here to deliver food to them. After all, Qin Hixio is the ally he is looking for now, so he cannot starve to death. Nolan crossed his legs and looked at Nweo with his feminine eyes. Nweo's back felt cold when he looked at her. She didn't forget that the man in front of her said that she would be his from now on. This is the price of saving her. Could it be that this man was attracted by her beauty? Thinking of this, Nweo suddenly had a new idea. Since Qin Hixio is unreliable and has no real ability, then the man in front of him should be much stronger than Qin Hixio. And he and Qin Lu also have a grudge. If he really likes her, then she will commit herself to him, as long as he can help her kill Nanyan. Nweo's expression instantly changed from cold and numb to surprise. She put on a sweet smile and walked a few steps to Nolan. "Sir, are you here to see me?" Qin Hixio sneered at her performance. He naturally knew what she was thinking. He just wanted to say that she really thought too highly of herself. He was sure that the man in front of him wanted him over, not because he liked her or wanted a bed partner. Nweo, this stupid woman, really wanted to die. Sure enough, just as Nweo's body was about to touch Nolan, Nolan kicked her and kicked her out. Puff. Nweo lay on the ground, spitting blood in embarrassment, and the expression on her face changed from a flattering smile to horror. Didn't he like her? Why did he treat her like this? "Sir, what do you mean by this?" Qin Hixio didn't look at Nweo's embarrassment, and sat down opposite Nolan slowly. You asked for her in person and used her life as a reward for saving her. Now you treat her like this, isn't it a bit hurtful? He asked this deliberately. Since Nweo, that stupid woman, betrayed him without hesitation, he naturally couldn't let her have an easy time. Seeing her collapse in pain, he was quite happy. I want her, and of course I will have other uses in the future, but she wants to defile me without knowing the consequences, that's courting death. Nolan's tone was cold. He was wearing a mask and sunglasses, so they couldn't see his face. But from his tone, they could hear his coldness and disgust towards Nweo. This is because Nweo didn't touch him. If she had touched him, he would have turned Nweo into a corpse just now. For women who can be with him, except for his kind, he doesn't look down on anyone else. That is, how can he get the heart of his junior sister? Wenheng said coldly in his mind, it's a fool's dream. His junior sister and Qin Lu have such a deep relationship, how can he just pry her away if he wants to? Moreover, Nilan did not think about it. He had already attacked Fuyubai. Just based on this, the junior sister would always be hostile to him. Thinking of this, Wenheng felt bitter. Even though this was not his will and he did not do it, Nilan occupied his body and used his body to do evil. In the eyes of outsiders, this was no different from what he did. He had no right to explain for himself. Perhaps, dying together with Nilan was his best ending. Nilan did not react to Wenheng's cold water and ignored him directly. Nweo was struck by lightning. Then she was hungry and in pain, and her mind was damaged, so she fainted directly. Nilan threw 2 pills to Qin's Hixiu, feed her. Qin's Hixiu was a little angry that he treated him as a servant to command, but he had to bow his head under the eaves. He could only take the 2 unknown medicines, come to Nweo, pry open her mouth and pour them all in. Qin's Hixiu, when will your people arrive? Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 440. Nolan lazily supported his head and said in a somewhat impatient tone, Qin's Hixiu, when will your people arrive? He rescued Qin's Hixiu not out of kindness, but because of his ability. He has a grudge against Qin Lu, but it is still difficult for him to deal with him alone. In order to keep Qin Xiu under control, it was naturally much better to use force than to exert force on his own. Qin's Hixiu frowned when he heard Nolan's words, and a hint of casual cruelty flashed in his eyes. But now that he was half a prisoner, he had to rely on Nolan's protection, so he could only temporarily restrain his temper. He ignored Nweo who fell on the ground, sat opposite him, and said, it will take a few more days. He had called his people yesterday. But they are all over there in country M. It is not that easy to come over. It's useless for a few people to come alone. They can't have any impact on Qin Lu. Qin's Hixiu also has a brain. From what happened yesterday, he could tell that Qin Lu's weakness was definitely the woman Nan Yan. But after Nan Yan's performance yesterday, he could also see that Nan Yan was no ordinary woman, and it was not easy to start with her. Nolan snorted coldly, all your men are snails. How many days? In a few days, he could fly the plane several times around the world. Qin's Hixiu's expression was unkind, sir, I am more anxious than you are, and I want to get out of this situation as soon as possible. Nolan actually agreed with this statement. But he just didn't expect that Qin's Hixiu, one of the 7 holy envoys of the temple, would act like this. When he is looking for a partner, he is not looking for another pig teammate. Nolan sighed in his mind, if it was a pig teammate, then he would just let him be cannon fodder. You'd better not play any tricks. Nolan sat up straight casually, then flicked his right hand, and a potion was directly pierced into Qin's Hixiu's body, who wanted to avoid when he saw something was wrong. Qin's Hixiu's movement slowed down a beat, and he was stabbed in the arm. He watched helplessly as the medicine was injected into his body. No matter how fast he pulled it out, it was still not as fast as injecting the medicine. What's this? Qin Ye asked Nolan angrily, holding the empty micro-Z ring. In order to make our cooperation more reliable, some small measures are still necessary. If you don't agree, then wait for death. In Nolan's feminine tone, he said words that were so infuriating that they wouldn't pay for their lives. Qin Ye was extremely angry and stared at Nolan. Finally, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said with a smile, "What did you say? Since you saved my life, I will naturally cooperate with you wholeheartedly. Besides, Qin Lu is my mortal enemy, and I'm eager to cooperate with you." Qin Ye clenched his hands, and the anger on his face was not false at all. "That's the best." Nolan pointed at the food on the table. "You're welcome, eat quickly. You can tell me what you want to eat tomorrow and I will try to buy it." Qin Ye took a deep breath, suppressed his emotions, and opened the lunch box in front of him expressionlessly. As for Nweo, she had passed out and had no idea about the conversation between them. Even if she was still awake, it wouldn't have any impact on either of them. Give her these medicines every 6 hours. If you miss one, your antidote will stop. Trust me, you don't want to suffer the pain of a viral attack. Nolan left a box of medicine and a thread before preparing to leave. Qin Ye put away the medicine and promised, "Don't worry, you won't miss it once." He stood up and walked Nolan to the door. As a result, when Nolan walked to the door and wanted to open the door, he heard a faint movement from outside, and quickly locked the door that was about to be opened. "What's wrong? Don't you want to leave?" Nolan didn't answer him, turned around and ran directly to the window. After opening the window, regardless of the height of the 6th floor, jumped directly. Qin Ye on the side was stunned and stunned. This is the 6th floor. He doesn't want to live anymore? Qin Lu, who was trying to open the door outside, heard Zhang Sen saying urgently through his Bluetooth headset, "Master, that person jumped out of the window." Qin Lu paused slightly. "Brother, what's wrong? Can't you open it?" Seeing him stop, Nan Yan asked. "He knew we were coming and jumped out of the window," Qin Lu said thoughtfully. "This behavior seems a bit familiar." Nan Yan guessed what he was thinking and raised her eyebrows. "The master of the 7 deadly sins." Yet Qin Lu took back his hand. "Yan Yan, step aside, I want to break down the door. Anyway, the people inside know they are coming, so they don't need to be so careful and just break down the door and get in." Hearing this, Nan Yan took a few steps back and said, "Take it easy, your legs only healed last month." Qin Lu, "Okay." He sighed softly, and then took a few steps back. His breath became cold, and he suddenly stepped forward quickly and kicked the locked door. Bang! A loud noise made Qin Ye's expression change in the room. He finally knew why Nolan jumped off the building. Is Nolan also afraid of Qin Lu? But now is not the time for him to think about this. He must not fall into Qin Lu's hands. He glanced at the already precarious door, rushed to the window with a quick stride, glanced at the height, gritted his teeth, and jumped out. At the same time, there was another loud noise, and the entire door was kicked down and fell to the ground. There was a huge vibration. Qin Ye also felt cruel, let go of his hand, and jumped down. But when he landed around the 3rd floor, someone grabbed his hand and carried him into the open door. Qin Ye. He actually jumped to the 3rd floor after jumping from the 6th floor. How did you do that? He even held him with his bare hands and pulled him in from outside the building. It didn't look like it was very strenuous. Nolan didn't have the time or interest to explain too much to him. After pulling him in, he said in a deep voice, "Let's go quickly." Qin Ye calmed down his emotions and followed his footsteps. Hashtag 6th floor. After Qin Lu kicked the door open, the two entered the room. Except for Nweo, who was unconscious. The other two people in the room had already disappeared. Master, there are too many blind spots in the surveillance. I didn't find out where they landed, but they definitely didn't fall to the ground. Zhang Sen controlled the mouse and checked all the surveillance cameras on this side of the building, but could not find their whereabouts at all. There's no need to look for them. We can't find them if we monitor such dead things. Qin Lu and Nan Yan stood at the window, looking downstairs from the 6th floor window. Empty. Zhang Sen could only give up checking the surveillance cameras. I understand, young master. Nan Yan turned around, looked at the unconscious Nwao, raised her eyebrows and said, at least, the trip was not in vain. After searching around the room, Nan Yan found Nolan and handed it to Qin's Hixiu. The box of potions placed by Qin's Hixiu on the table was another unexpected gain. There was also the empty microsyringe thrown on the ground. Apart from that, there is nothing else useful. Taking Nwao with her, Nan Yan asked Qin Lu to take her to the number 1 hospital. She guessed from the box of medicine that Nwao should also be injected with medicine. Assuming that the person who rescued Qin's Hixiu and Nwao was really the master of the 7 deadly sins, then there is a 80% chance that these medicines are also genetic medicines. Perhaps, she could find out something from these potions that could be used to save Shen Junqing and Bai Chen. The black luxury car drove quickly on the road and soon arrived at the number 1 hospital. Nan Yan went directly to the laboratory department and analyzed the box of medicine in her hand first. As for Nwao, she was sent to the intensive care unit, where blood and other tissue fluids were drawn and tested. But what they don't know is, not long after they left, Nolan and Qin's Hixiu returned to the room. Qin's Hixiu's eyes first looked at the place where he put the medicine. They took the medicine away. Nolan glanced at it. It didn't matter that Qin Lu and the others took away the medicine. He frowned and said, it seems they have guessed my identity. Qin's Hixiu took advantage of the situation and asked, what is your identity? Nolan sneered and said angrily, if you want to know, then check it out yourself. If you can't find out, don't ask. Do you want to continue living here or live next door? It's your choice. Wait for my news. Don't act without permission at other times. Qin's Hixiu, I live next door. The most dangerous place is also the safest place. However, this room is still in danger, and it is inevitable that the other party will search it again. Next door is a good choice. He didn't move anything here. After coming out of the broken door, he moved to the next door. Nolan, on the other hand, rushed to the hospital. His identity cannot be discovered by them yet. Otherwise, he would have no chance and take his junior sister away. Hashtag. Nan Yan worked in the hospital all night, and she didn't come out of the examination room until early the next morning. Qin Lu was not in the hospital. After sending her to the hospital yesterday, he returned to Landis. The two of them divided their work and hoped to find the real culprit behind the scenes as soon as possible. When Nan Yan came out, she met Nolan. Nolan frowned and asked with concern, little junior sister, did you stay up all night again last night? Nan Yan rubbed his eyebrows, nodded, and then reminded him, don't tell Master and the others. Nolan said helplessly, you know that Master and Uncle Sun will train you, but you still don't know how to cherish your body. Why can't you wait until you have a good rest before getting busy? Nan Yan pursed her lips and found a very reasonable excuse, I slept too long yesterday afternoon. I was not sleepy at night and couldn't sleep. Nolan looked at her tangledly, with an expression that said, try telling this to your master. Second senior brother, I am really not too tired and have a sense of propriety. Don't tell master and others about this matter. Don't say it. Okay, I'm scared of you. Nolan quickly compromised, then after you meet master and the others later, find time to rest for a while. Let's go, I just went downstairs to buy breakfast. You haven't eaten either, so let's go to the third junior brother's ward to eat. Good. In the ward. Fu Yubai has woken up. Hua Shifang has asked again, but Fu Yubai can't remember anything. Yubai, think about it again and see if there is anything you missed. Fu Yubai said weakly, Master, I really don't know how I got injured. I don't even have any impression of why I appeared there yesterday. I only remember that I was monitoring the Yin family for my junior sister, and I don't remember anything about what happened later. Master, did the third brother lose his memory? Nan Yan came in and happened to hear their conversation. Well, it is possible that he was injured in the head, causing memory loss. It seems that we have to wait until the blood clots in his head disperse before we can see if we can restore that memory. Fu Yubai was seriously injured. In addition to the internal injuries that almost killed him, the external injuries were also serious. Especially when he was hit by Nolan's sneak attack and fell, his head hit the ground, causing intracranial hemorrhage, which happened to be the reason for him to lose this memory. So, Hua Shifang and Nan Yan did not consider that there were other reasons for Fu Yubai's amnesia. Third brother, you should take good care of your injuries first, and don't worry about anything else. Nan Yan's words made Fu Yubai nod. He said apologetically, I'm sorry, I made you worry again. Hua Shifang sighed, take good care of your injuries. Master, Uncle Son, I bought breakfast, let's go eat first. Nolan spoke at the right time. He was very satisfied with the fact that Fu Yubai didn't remember anything, and Hua Shifang and Nan Yan guessed that he had lost his memory because of a head injury. His identity would not be exposed, so he would have many opportunities to take action. He must make good use of his identity as the second senior brother. At least, he had to take Nan Yan away before it was exposed. After dinner, Nolan asked Hua Shifang and Sun Chan to go back and rest, and he would take care of Fu Yubai. And Nan Yan went to see Grandpa in his ward. After seeing Nan Yan, Mr. N's gloomy expression changed into a smile, and he couldn't help but smile. Yan Yan, why are you here so early again? Didn't you get enough rest yesterday? No, I slept in the hospital yesterday, and after I got up and ate, I came to see you. Nan Yan looked around the ward. Except for Qin Ye, who was accompanying the old man's bed diligently, there was no one from the Yin family. Where are they? Your eldest brother. Mr. N saw Nan Yan frowning slightly, and quickly changed his address. N's Hisai went back to the company, and N Siding went to buy food. They just left not long ago. Siding won't take long to buy food, he will be back in a few minutes. Yan Yan, don't be angry. Mr. N is now afraid that Nan Yan will be angry. Hurry up and explain to him clearly, tell her that the Yin brothers are here to take care of him. Although the conflict between Nan Yan and the Yin family is deep enough, he still doesn't want Nan Yan to have a worse impression of the Yin family. Well, I understand. Nan Yan's expression relaxed, looking at his dry and peeling lips, and whispered, drink some warm water first. Yeah, old Manan was thirsty for a long time. Nan Yan took half a cup of warm water, came over with a spoon and slowly fed him. Old Manan was anxious and wanted to drink more, but Nan Yan didn't allow it. After drinking half a cup of warm water, old Manan still wanted to drink, but Nan Yan didn't give it to him. Grandpa. Nan Yan was about to speak, and the closed door was suddenly pushed open from the outside.